success. So said John D. Rockefeller Sr. This is why you should not always stick with the old ways of doing things. Strike out a new path, and there is greatness awaiting you. That's by way of introduction, and a welcome to this morning's Zed in the Morning, right here on Z 101.9 FM. Abdullah Saka comes up next with a 6 a.m. news.
We're broadcasting live from number 6 Anyeta Avenue, East Legon. Good morning and welcome to the Zed Morning News here on Z 101.9 FM. Coming up, widespread power outages over the weekend increased citizens' demand for a doomsday timetable. We'll bring you reactions. Managing partner at Ishmael Yamson and Associates asks government to walk the talk on tax reforms, and Gender Studies and Human Rights Documentation Center questions government's decision to hand over the 15-year-old girl at the center of the child marriage controversy to her parents. I am Saka Abdullah. Let's begin. Demand for a doomsday timetable have increased after widespread power outages were experienced in parts of the country over the weekend. Previous calls for a schedule were dismissed by Sector Minister Matthew Opoku-Prempeh, who challenged power consumers to publish their timetable if they deem it necessary. Well, weeks after the comment, consumers are still reeling under unannounced cuts in electricity. Several of them took to social media to vent their frustrations after experiencing long hours of outages on Saturday and Sunday. I have with me some Z News curated social media posts of power consumers venting on the matter. On the official Twitter account of Samuel Okujeto Ablakwa, he says, Doomsday is traumatizing millions, collapsing businesses and destroying electrical equipment and causing untold agony. Also, Fentio Tahiru, he says, lights were off all day, came back at 6 p.m. and by 11:30 p.m. they were off again until this morning. I'm very cranky because I've not had any quality sleep. I've seen Doomsday in the past, but there was a structure to it. This is all madness. Gilbert Owuzukuzi says the idea that they think this doomsday thing is propaganda says a lot more about this government. From Fridays, they switch it off from 12 a.m. to 5:30 p.m. and this evening as well. Sadiq Adams on Twitter also says, I wholly agree with the decision not to publish a timetable for doomsday because these localized faults are too bad. It won't even respect any timetable. Kojo Sama says, lights have gone off 3 times in 2 days for more than 6 of each time, but I'm supposed to believe that this is not doomsday. So these are some of the reactions on social media, people expressing their frustration at the current power crisis, and we'll bring you more as and when they happen. Moving on. Managing partner at Ishmael Yamson and Associates, Michael Harry Yamson, has asked government to walk the talk on its policy to widen the tax net. Government is seeking to implement tax reforms that will reduce exemptions and broaden the scope of taxable activities to minimize the burden on existing taxpayers and bring more individuals and entities into the tax net. But Michael Harry Yamson believes that businesses in the informal sector cannot be expected to show up within the tax net on their own. He says government must have political muscle to take decisions that will bring efficiency in the collection of taxes. He spoke in an exclusive interview with Z News' Isaac Edu.
There are 2 issues. First of all, we say that turkeys don't vote for Christmas. So you cannot expect the small business sector to willingly walk itself into the tax architecture of the economy. No matter what anybody says, it has to be a conscious, active decision by government, by the revenue agencies to make sure that that actually happens. And we are capable if we put our minds, then the political will behind it, and we allow those in the appropriate institutions to do their work. The second issue is corruption, and let's face it, because the one supposed to ensure that what must be paid is oftentimes the very person who is suggesting how you can avoid it, or is willing to acquiesce to suggestions and entities to avoid. So we have this dual situation where we don't want to take the decision that has to be made operationally. And we are faced with a culture of corruption, tax avoidance, tax dodging, if you want to call it that. That means that you cannot deal with that issue on a purely political footing. This has to be something that the major parties agree on, support each other, whether in government or out of government, to ensure that when it comes to the nation's revenue, everything is done right. I listened to a speech by the former president of South Africa, Thabo Mbeki, who said, South Africa worked well and weathered so many storms in a period where 95% of the resources of the state were collected by the South Africa Revenue Service, efficiently collected. And that when people wanted to attack the state, they did not organize a coup, they did not go to parliament and create chaos, they merely undermined the revenue service.
That was Michael Harry Yamson of Ishmael Yamson Associates speaking on tax reforms. The Policy Initiative for Economic Development Africa says governments must be serious in managing the rising cost of living in the country. The call comes at a time when incidences on the international market have resulted in volatile prices for fuel, with the Energy Institute of Security projecting that prices could hit 18 cedis for diesel and petrol in the next coming days. Coupled with this is the continuous depreciation of the cedi against major currencies. Speaking to Zed News, chief economist of the group, Daniel Enim, said government failure to act could threaten the security of the country.
The implication is that it will minimize the standard of living. In other words, it will affect the quality of life expected of Ghanaians. And that's the reason which it is very critical on the part of the managers of the economy to put in mechanisms to ensure that living conditions are improved across board. And it is against this backdrop that you see in recent times most of the trade unions, the teachers' unions, etc., are now advocating for improved living conditions so that they will be able to at least afford certain basic necessities of life. So these are the implications across board. And to me, going beyond the economics of it, it poses national security threat. Because when citizens do not have money in their pockets, and even the little that they have, they are unable to afford goods and services to satisfy their basic needs. People may resort to all manner of social vices in an attempt to survive, and that may affect the security, the level or the degree of security in the country. So these are the...
You heard the voice of Chief Economist with Policy Initiative for Economic Development, Daniel Enim. On to another story. The Gender Studies and Human Rights Documentation Center is questioning government's decision to hand over the 15-year-old girl at the center of the child marriage controversy to her parents. Government took custody of the teenage girl on April 1, following public criticism of the marriage between her and the 63-year-old Bogubulomo of the Nungwa Traditional Council. But at a press briefing last Thursday, Gender Minister-designate Dakoa Newman said the Attorney General has recommended that the child be reunited with her family after having the parents sign a bond to protect her rights. The move is, however, being questioned by the center. Programs Manager Deborah Akapo has been explaining why.
The parents signing a bond does not solve the problem, because when these parents go back to the community with the child, tradition and culture takes over. So they might have signed a bond, but when tradition and culture takes over, which was what in the beginning forced them to give the child away, tradition takes over again and they are not able to control what happens with the child. So then the question is asked, was it right for just the parents to have signed a bond, or were there other people who should have been involved in signing the bond? Section 4 talks about not using cultural practice as a basis to dehumanize any child. And the heading of that section talks about right to refuse betrothal and marriage. So then we ask ourselves, if the laws of the land supersedes any cultural practice and tradition, then why is this girl being returned back to the parents who are going to go back into the community, and this girl is going to be subjected to undergoing and continuing the cultural practices that we have all risen up against and spoken up against. If the environment in which this child is going, as the act says, is not right, then even giving her back to the parents with a bond is not the best idea. The parents are not the ones who are insisting that culture and tradition must rule. It is the community, it is the traditions of the society. So even if the parents sign the bond does not cover what the cultural practices say.
You heard Deborah Akpakpo, Programs Manager for the Gender Studies and Human Rights Documentation Center, speaking in opposition of the return of the 15-year-old girl to her parents. That is all we have for the morning bulletin here on Z 101.9 FM. Before I leave, a recap of the major stories. Widespread power outages over the weekend increased citizens' demand for a doomsday timetable. We brought you reactions from that on social media. Managing partner at Ishmael Yamson and Associates asked governments to walk the talk on tax reforms, and Gender Studies and Human Rights Documentation Center questions government's decision to hand over the 15-year-old girl at the center of the child marriage controversy to her parents. I am Saka Abdullahi. Jerry Ham continues with Zed in the Morning. Stay tuned.
headlines and reviews right here on Zed in the Morning. And I'm here with my colleague Abdullah Saka to run us through the news headlines of all the major newspapers. He has a bunch on his hands. Charlie bro, how was the weekend?
Yeah, the weekend was it was good. It was a little stressful. I had a few papers to write and things. So Charlie, you know how it is when
I know.
the pressure.
You go learn.
Yeah, but Alhamdulillah, we're here.
Fantastic.
We're ready to fire on.
First paper in your hands as we try.
Yes, of course, it's our very own The New Finder. And The New Finder has boldly on its front page ECG's double jeopardy. Bears brunt of customers while losing revenue. Donor responsible for power cuts. That story can be found on page 2 of The New Finder. It also says World Bank IMF affirms Ghana's economic recovery and is attributing that statement to the finance minister Dr. Amin Adam, and that story can be found on page 4 of the newspaper. It also says 5.8 million Ghana cedi PRC fine unlawful according to ECG boss, and that is also found on page 4 of the New Finder newspaper. And it features a beautiful picture of the Asante Hene and Kojo Ponkroma. Okay. And under it, the headline is "Continuing with your good works at the Housing Ministry." Asante Hene tells Oponkroma, and that story can be found on page 9 of the New Finder newspaper.
Okay, I have here the custodian. The custodian said, Medina market women mob Baumia. That's a page 2 story. Keep up your good works at Housing Ministry. Asantini to Oponkroma. Then beware of same old Mahama. That's majority cautions voters. The story is on page 3 of the custodian. ECG board members oppose PURC's fine, and CRM will bring LPG closer to consumers. NPA boss says that's Dr. Mustafa Abdul Hamid, and I'm sure we're talking about the cylinder recirculation project here.
I have here the Daily Guide newspaper, and it says ECG board fights PURC over 5.8 million Ghana cedi fine. Similar to what the News Finder also published, and it says 3 killed in gas explosion, and that story can be seen on page 6 of the Daily Guide newspaper. And boldly it says leave Baumia alone, Veep chases toad, and that story is featured on page 3 of Daily Guide. And it says TUC descends on Professor Adair. TUC descents on Professor Adair can be found on page 3 of the Daily Guide newspaper.
Okay, the front page of the Chronicle, MPP running mate saga. Stop pressurizing Baumia group tells lobbies. ECG board members react. PURC can't impose fines on us. MPP youth wing shakes Ashanti region with a picture of Salah Mustafa. Here on the front page of the Chronicle.
On the front page of the New Crusading Guide, this story features again. It says 5.8 million fine illegitimate and arbitrary ECG board to PURC, and it features a picture. It also features another story on the front page, a picture of the vice president and a couple of Frema Opare, and it says Frema Opare calls for gender equality and business innovation. And it also says Baumia offers a better future for Ghana, and it attributes that statement to Afenyo Markin.
Okay, the Ghanaian Times, at inauguration of Ghana Cote d'Ivoire Cocoa Initiative Secretariat, the president is to have said, let's deal with challenges in global cocoa price hikes. Then Western North, most expensive food region. That's from the GSS. I'm sure that's a statistical service. Then there is another one, but this one is more like a small picture with a little caption. It says, danger looms at Oibi Sasabi. The Ghanaian Times reports that there is a wooden pylon that is almost breaking down. Apparently, the pole had virtually been consumed by bushfire at Oibi Sasabi, close to Hayat Senior High School in a Katamanso municipality of the Greater Accra. So the Ghanaian Times was calling on the authorities to, I think the ECG specifically, to do something about it. That's the front page of the Ghanaian Times.
The front page of the Daily Dispatch says vote for Baumia, reject Mahama as he has nothing new to offer. That is from Afenyo Markin, and it features a picture of Baumia and John Dramani Mahama side to side on that story. It also says NPA urges LPG users to patronize cylinder recirculation model, and that story can be found on page 11 of the Daily Dispatch newspaper.
On the front page of the Daily Statesman, Ghana wins international arbitration case against Cassius Mining. for Lord's Housing Minister, ECG board challenges PRC over 5.8 million Ghana cedi fine. And then the big story says Baumia offers visionary leadership. Afenyo Akin makes case for vice president. That's on the front page of the Daily Statesman.
Daily Post front page says education. I'll collaborate with teacher union stakeholders to develop policies. That is attributed to John Dramani Mahama. And Lordina Mahama interacts with young ladies at singles camp meeting, also featured on the Daily Post's front page. And BNFT, I have here BNFT, and the front page says urban farm vegetables high in mercury and fecal content, according to a study. That story can be found on page 2 of BNFT. And it also says IMF disbursement expected despite creditor deal delays. That story can be found on page 3 of BNFT.
Okay, I have here the Informer, the front page of the Informer. On the page 5, CRM to make gas delivery efficient, less costly. Then PURC fine unlawful. That's the former ECG board, Mr. Kelly Gajipu speaking there. Ensure your wares, engage qualified electricians. Baumia advises traders. And then the big story is Gensa Kumasi pipeline project. I'm proud of Napo, Utumfo said. Conviction of Maslog boss Martin Pebu applauds government. And then abuse of power, massive demo against Kumasi Hercules, with a picture of the Ashanti Regional Minister Simon Osei Mensah here. Kumasi Hercules.
The Ghanaian publisher front page says former ECG board fights PURC over liability charges. NPP shake Ashanti. That is also featured on the front page of the Ghanaian publisher, and the story can be found on page 6. The worst is over for Ghana's economy, and it attributes that statement to IMF. And it also features a story, and it says Maslock happening outright free, according to Kwemka. That is what the Ghanaian publisher says on its front page.
And I have here the Daily Graphic. It said flood prevention in Accra, $675 million needed for Odor project. Then there's a picture of the Vice President, Dr. Mahmoud Baumia, congratulating Griffith Nana Osafo Brak, who is the winner of the 2023 SDGs Junior Graphic Essay Competition at the Jubilee House. The young man is excited. I mean, he's here with the Vice President. And the Vice President said at that event, engage young minds on SDGs through writing. Another story on the page 13 of the Daily Graphic, Ghana to invest 60 million in cashew sector. And then page 13 again, Ioko to host 14th Commonwealth Africa Anti-Corruption Conference. So these are the major stories on the front pages of all the major newspapers coming through this Monday, the 22nd of April. Saka, which of these stories first caught your attention? I realize you were going deep into one. Which one were you reading? I'm
looking more in detail at the story featured on the New Finders front page. It says 5.8 million Ghana cedis PRC fine unlawful, according to ECG boss, and it's on page 4. Let me just read a little of that story to provide context. It says lawyers representing board members of the Electricity Company of Ghana are contesting the hefty 5.8 million Ghana cedi fine imposed by the Public Utilities Regulatory Commission for failing to provide a consistent load management schedule. They challenged the authority of the commission to impose fines, arguing that it lacks powers equivalent to that of the High Court. They argue that the commission's legal mandate allows it to impose fines on the company itself as a public utility, not on its board members. And they argue that since board members are not directly involved in day-to-day operations, they cannot be held personally responsible for the company's actions. So it says here that the lawyers for ECG are arguing that the board members cannot be held liable for the actions of the company because they are not directly involved in the day-to-day operations or the day-to-day running of the company.
Saka, that story is going to be quite interesting. I think,
it is.
Especially from the legal standpoint, what is going to make it exciting is going to set a precedent. Because first of all, don't forget on the 17th of April, Wednesday, last week Wednesday, Jojo Enchi, the deputy head for media relations of the PURC, was sitting on this very chair you're sitting on, and I asked him, that what happens if they say they won't pay, and he said it would go into a legal battle. And so yes, the lawyers have responded.
Yeah.
So I mean, but this is the argument, and let's put aside whatever coloring we have in our eye and look at this thing the way it's supposed to be looked at. If the ECG is fined as it stands now as a legal entity, we who are being fought for by the PURC eventually are the ones going to pay the fine.
For the fine. Yeah, true.
You get that point.
Yeah.
Because we own that thing, that entity.
Yeah.
So if you find the entity itself, we would end up
paying for it.
And then, so it's like we pick money from our right pocket, put it in our left pocket, and get excited that we are richer, which doesn't make sense. Because one of the things that you would understand from the legal point is always, what is the punitive measure? Who is paying for whatever wrong is done? So if we that are being shortchanged are going to be indirectly fined, then they cannot fine ECG.
True.
Now, who is giving direction to ECG? That happens to be
the board members.
Thank you.
Yeah.
So they should bear the brunt for giving wrong direction or wrong management or wrong supervision, whichever way.
No, but you know,
then they too come up and say, "Hey, listen, it is we are not, because it is a limited by shares company. It means that when an LLC, a limited by shares company, messes up, as opposed to limited by guarantee, what happens is that you fall first on the shares.
Yeah.
That is the shareholders. But the shareholders are you and I.
Ghanaians, we are the shareholders.
It's going to be an interesting legal
It's going to be
case.
very, very interesting.
Yeah.
But I do understand the rationale of the PRC by directing.
I also understand
because
that,
I mean, you are fighting for us. You cannot end up punishing us in the process. But you see, the legality is the issue. Whether they can really make a case for why it is the board members who and I mean practically you would understand why they want to go after the board member, because I mean you make the strategic decisions.
Of course.
You understand? If the board sits down and says, you know what, management, this is what you need to do. It is important that you do this. I mean, management has very little to do in a position of that. So it is understandable that they would want to go after the board, or they would want to hold the board liable. But these are legal issues.
Yeah, I mean, for us,
these are legal
for
issues.
us at Zed, I think the excitement is the fact that we'll find out what the law says. And when we are done with what the law actually prescribes, that becomes a good roadmap for anybody else who is being brought onto a state-owned enterprise board. Yeah. For you to know that, hey, this board you are going to sit on, if you are not careful, they might come after you. But then you see, closely related to that ECG story is the double jeopardy story by Elvis Dakun on the page 2 of the same new finder. Now, what is Elvis' story saying is, listen, ECG is becoming unpopular because they've not given timetable and everything, and they are bearing the brunt of all the customers' anger, though they are not responsible. Charlie, I mean, ECG, these are not good times to be.
I mean, and a story featured on our morning news, and the reactions on social media on this matter is just terrible for ECG's reputation. I mean, people seem to think that ECG is intentionally doing this. They just want to punish. Like, people just seem to think like ECG has a grudge against citizens,
when it is absolutely not true.
So. It is not so, but I mean, at the end of the day, I mean, you are the face of the problem. So it is only natural that people would want to vent their frustrations on you.
I mean, for PR people like you and I'm wondering what the corporate affairs department is going through at this
Jerry,
time.
at this point, what are you going to do? At this point,
but you see,
what the hell can you do?
There is this counter argument too that probably it's also not the best to get a timetable. Because if you got a timetable, you're going to plan your life according to it.
Yeah.
But if what they're saying is true, these are localized issues and all that, it means the timetable might not work.
Exactly.
Which would be worse than not having a timetable.
Yes. This is exactly what Sadiq Adams was saying on social media, that with the way they are saying it's a localized fault, if we get a timetable, people might turn up angrier at ECG than they already are. Because if you give us a timetable, I expect that, I mean, the outages follow the timetable. If I come, I'm supposed to have lights at 6. I schedule my plans for 6. I get there and there's no light, Charlie. I go walk past.
Yeah, because you could see, say, a business that is in an area where their lights are off.
Yeah.
And so they relocate to a place where they can get lights to work, knowing that at a certain point, when they come back, like say, there will be lights there. They travel all the way back and the timetable isn't working. Can you imagine how frustrated they will be? They would even lose it more
than yes.
So these are interesting, very interesting issues.
Jerry, there is a sad story I've cited on the front page of the Daily Guide. It says 3 killed in gas explosion. So I'd want to read a little of that. It is on page 6 of the Daily Guide. It says, a domestic gas explosion has unfortunately claimed the lives of 3 relatives at Sepe, a suburb of Kumasi, the capital of the Ashanti region. And it says, for the cause, it says, Hamdallah Jibril reportedly detected a leakage from their 6-kilogram gas cylinder in the kitchen and took it out behind the kitchen to check what was causing the leakage. Unknown to Jibril, there was a coal pot with fire at the back of the kitchen, which suddenly caused the explosion, leading to the 3 deaths and injuries to 1 other person.
See, this is a story that we carried and last week.
This story it hits home because I grew up in Sepe. In Kumasi. Sepe is where I grew up, so it hits quite close. See, safety. We need to talk about safety in this country. Every time there is a lot of education on security, how to protect your property, how to protect yourself from thieves, from kidnappers, from all of that. But I feel that we need to up our safety game a notch in Ghana. We always compromise on safety. I mean, generally, we are not willing to compromise on security, but when it comes to safety, we seem to think that it is not important. We seem to think that it's not important. And in this particular incident, there have been calls that if you have a cylinder, you don't keep it in the kitchen.
Yes.
You understand? If you have a gas cylinder, the Ghana National Fire Service has always advocated that do not keep these cylinders in the kitchen. Keep them outside. Outside, they are airy. There is air around. If there is any leakage, it is much easier for the gas to dissipate. You understand? So some of these safety concerns, the agencies responsible for educating us on safety must really up their game, because we cannot keep losing lives to, things like this. It's just these are 3 relatives, family members. From one family. Imagine what the family is going through at this point. So it's really sad. It's really sad that due to little safety errors, we tend to lose lives like this. And you see, a couple of years ago, just in I don't know if it was 2008. It was between 2007 to 2010. I don't remember. I grew up in that area. So Asuka, not far from that area, there was a gas station. I don't know if it was called, I've forgotten the name, just around the stadium. Where the Kumasi Mall is, just before where the Kumasi Mall is right now. And there was a big explosion. So they were offloading the gas. They had brought at that time there was a gas shortage. So they brought in the gas, and
instead of waiting for it to settle 24 hours.
Exactly, which Ghana National Fire Service has emphasized that if you buy gas and you bring it home, you buy the cylinder, put the cylinder down, let it rest for a couple of hours before you start using it, because the molecules of the gas charge up in motion. They charge up with the motion. They energize, and when you start using it like that, there might be an explosion. So in that incident, people died. See, as far as from Asuka, as far as people at Agunaga Junction in Kumasi, they felt the vibration of the explosion. It was that bad, and it killed a lot of people. So we need to take safety issues more seriously in this country, and the agencies responsible for education must do a lot more. I know they're trying, but they must do a lot more to educate us on safety measures and safety precautions.
And closely related to that story is this CRM project that is really in high gear, the cylinder recirculation module. Now, put the 2 things together. This is a time where we're saying, as Ghanaians, that we want a new system that will make getting cylinder easier, getting cylinder a lot more affordable because they are bringing it to your community, a community close by you and all that. So in other words, what we are expecting are people to have a lot more access to cylinders. At the same time, when the education is not up there.
Yeah.
So that good thing called a CRM could actually, without the proper education,
go left.
begin to rather become a lot more of the need. Because if now it becomes affordable, like it is being said on the front pages, the NPA boss said here, the front page of the custodian, CRM will bring LPG closer to consumers. LPG just killed 3 people.
Yeah.
And CRM is supposed to bring LPG
it
closer. You understand? So it is possible that, and don't forget too that when the thing becomes a lot cheaper, it means those new people who adopt it as a technology wouldn't have had proud knowledge of how to deal with it.
So this is where we need to up the education the most. With this cylindry circulation module.
Thank you. That's exactly what I'm saying.
Yeah.
That don't forget that if it becomes affordable and closer, the new people who would use it might not have had the experience before. They might not have been taught how to use it. They might go and use it like a kerosene.
Someone who has used firewood all their lives will start to use a cylinder. Imagine.
Because the CRM has been successful.
Yeah.
And then here we go. It's going to be something else. So what we are saying is, whilst the CRM agenda is being pushed, solid education must lead it. It must actually be led more with education.
Definitely.
Right?
Definitely.
Than with tax issues that recently came up and people were fighting it and all that. We cannot also run away from the front page of the Daily Graphic. $675 million needed for Odor project.
Jerry,
dollars.
When you mentioned the figure, initially when you read the headline, you mentioned the figure. It took me, I was like, is this 65 million he's talking about?
No,
$675
million.
How much is a tranche from IMF?
Charlie, don't do that. Let's. This is for good. Accra's flood issues must be. I mean, you saw. You are seeing it. Not you saw. You are seeing the pictures of Dubai, the floods, right? We don't want that here. So for us, we need to raise this money.
Jerry, I'm thinking of how we are going to raise this money. I'm just trying to conceptualize where these funds could possibly come from. Listen. And whether we have even the political will to dedicate such funds to the project.
Yeah, but then, I mean, what is the alternative? Yearly floods in Accra. One led to another close project, with something we just spoke about.
Yeah.
The fire, the gas, Kwame Nkrumah Circle, floods. And you are the one sitting there shouting, safety, we should be careful of it. So $665 million.
No, I'm just looking at it from the practical standpoint. Like, see, this is a lot of money, Jerry. That's more than $500 million US. In this economic situation, do you think we even have, number one, do we have the money? Number two, do we have the political will? Because see, and we know how partisan governance is in this country. Do you think a government would be willing to dedicate this amount of money when they could probably, build schools or something and then put it in their and I'm the one who built this, I'm the one who built that.
If you did Odor Drain too, we'll give you funds.
No, that would just be one project. Putting all this money in one project, wow. It is important. We need to find the money somehow. It is a matter of priority, but I'm just looking at it from the practical standpoint that Charlie, you go chair.
No, you no go chair. It will be done. Okay, last one. Ghana to invest $60 million in cashew sector. Because last week we were talking about the cashew thing here, where we said we need to move from cocoa to not move from cocoa. Cocoa, of course, is the granddaddy of all exports. Yes, but I mean we should also look at diversifying into areas such as cashew. And so I think over the week there was this sixth consultative international cashew conference that was held at the Kempinski Hotel in Accra last Saturday. Countries that participated apart from Ghana were Cote d'Ivoire, Benin, Togo, Nigeria, Cameroon, Senegal, Mali, Guinea-Bissau, Burkina Faso, and Mozambique. And it was stated, the chief executive of the Tree Crops Development Authority, William Ejipon, has revealed that government has approved $100 million loan from the World Bank, with about 60 million out of that amount expected to be invested in the cashew sector. I mean, if you look at the potential of cashew as a tree crop, I think it's something that as a country we've not done too well in that direction. We've been too fixated with a few crops, cocoa. I mean, but the opportunities that can come from cashew could be mind-blowing. The opportunities that can, I mean, apart from using it as a snack, the tall list of stuff that you can get from cashew. I think it's something that we should take a second look at as Ghanaians. Either than that, we will one day find ourselves too skewed in one direction.
We are too traditional in our ways. It's an issue with Ghana, and I always talk about in relation to technology as well. We too, even in our, it reflects everywhere. We are too comfortable. It reflects everywhere, in agriculture, in technology, in whatever. And it is something that we must start to change. So I'm happy that the new generation, I always advocate for the new generation. I have so much hope and so much faith in us that we are mavericks. We are going to come and try to, change things and look at other avenues where Ghana could benefit from. Jerry, this story on BNFT page 2.
Okay.
It says urban farm vegetables high in mercury and fecal content. This is serious, Jerry.
What water do they use to do it? What water does that farmer use to water on the way to the motorway on the left side, on the Sharman side?
Yeah, I've seen that.
Large vegetables, stretch of vegetable. Where's the water coming from?
This mercury.
That's why we say wash the tin well.
This is carcinogenic. Mercury.
Wash and wash well before you cut it on top of the wachi.
What is policy? What policy do we have against these things? Is there something? Is there some sort of policy that looks at these things? You are in agreement.
No.
What,
I mean,
is there,
listen. Policies are meant to direct, right? But Saka, you should understand that there is one policy that rules all policies: demand and supply. I don't care how good your policy looks on paper. The woman wants vegetables to add to a jollof the wachi by the wayside. She's told that she can get cheap ones in the certain corner. She goes and she inspects, the leaves are green and everything is fine. Is she going to walk around with a microscope and say, let me put it under the No. She's just going to buy it. So I keep saying that let's push the education rather to we are our own enemies and we can be our own saviors. If we begin to look to policy and begin to wait for Mofa will say don't do this and don't do that, we will struggle. But we the people, and you and I, Saka, the thing is this: where we eat, we must be conscious of it. Where we eat, we must be super conscious of what we put in our bodies. Number one. Number two, the one selling must also understand that it's not all about profit. If you're not cooking well and we all die out, where are you going to make your profit from? It is something that we should think about very well.
But Jerry, if you do that, are we not giving the policymakers a holiday on doing their jobs? Because
not necessarily.
As a citizen, I elect you or I give you authority to head an agency or to head an whatever, an organization, a government institution, to ensure that I am safe. I should be able to sleep, eat whatever I want to eat, and know that you are making sure that I am safe. You are being paid with taxpayers' money. You are being paid. I'm working and I'm contributing to the state, so I expect that the state protects me. Why should I have to be extra careful? I understand. I mean, you have a responsibility to yourself to ensure that, you have good health, you are eating the right things and all of that. But why should it be my job?
There are parts to play, of course.
Why should it be my job?
Yeah, but if you leave all the job to them too, so it's a 50-50 thing. You do your part and pray that they do well. If they don't do well, that's why you kick them out of office.
Because in developed countries,
that's why you kick them out of office.
You cannot enter Europe with certain if your vegetables are not of a certain standard.
That's why some of our exports are not accepted there.
Yeah.
Because they cannot allow you to bring some of these things. Of course, Europe won't take your vegetables.
I mean,
they know you use.
Those are policymakers who want to protect their citizens.
Yeah, but
in Africa, we have to just say, "Charlie, make me to do my own, make I no can die."
Yeah, because if you don't,
what kind of?
So we have our responsibilities, and they have theirs as well. In August 2008, President Obama tweeted on X. It wasn't X at the time.
It was Twitter.
Yes, he said that the change that we need will not come from Washington. It must come to Washington. And he said when the people need a change bad enough, it would happen. So yeah, you never know. I mean, we Charlie, the things on our head. It's like somebody saying, "I've given the job of looking after my house to the security man. So when you go to bed, why do you still lock your doors?" Yeah, the security man is out there. He's even pacing up and down with his AK-47. Why you still lock your door, Charlie? Oh boy, if you put your life in the hands of
but I disagree. I disagree. I'm paying the security man. If I'm paying the security man well enough, I should be able to sleep without locking my door.
Thank you very much.
I mean, in Dubai, for instance, there have been several reports that you can leave your phone on top of your car in an open street. You go to the mall, go and roam, come and still find your phone there.
Yeah,
that is a country that works. That is the level of security, safety that we expect in Ghana. But and if we give up and we say that...
We're not saying give up. We're saying still... That's why you are going to the polls this year. That's why you get opportunity to do those things.
So that is
a part you can play on checking authorities and those in power. However, my point still remains that whilst checking them, which is a security man, making sure he's up and doing, he's not sleeping.
For your own sake.
Lock your door. Lock your door, Saka. Lock your door. Do double burglar proof. And then the windows. Lock them with 3 times the padlocks. Because if you give your life into the hands of someone, especially in this part of our world, I mean, fecal matter.
Mercury is even the most. At least fecal matter is organic. Mercury, that's carcinogenic.
Yes.
Mercury, that's so. See, it's surprising that you see a young person in Ghana, they've diagnosed them with some rare form of cancer, and you're wondering, where do all these stuff come from? How did such a child get a disease? And then
it's sad, but that's a fact.
These things.
Yeah, that's a fact. It's sad, but that's a system we find ourselves in. Because think of it this way: if you don't put your own life in your own hands, and you decide to come and give it all to policy and to policymakers and all that, one of the things that is going to happen is that at the time policy will disappoint you, Charlie, it will be too late. That for me is a worrying thing. And you see, illiteracy also comes in here.
True.
Illiteracy, because if the man pouring that water, that contaminated water on the vegetables to help it grow, if he knows,
understood,
maybe he doesn't do.
Yeah,
that's why sometimes I'm not too hard on these people. I'm not too hard because Charlie Saka, you never know.
So it goes back to the agencies, do the education. You're not doing it.
No. We need solid education in this part of the world. It is very important. The last story before I take leave, because you have to come back and do your business news. Last story. Now Okromo is back with the family.
Yeah.
The newsroom did a story on that.
Yes.
And you said why some NGO or some CSO is not happy.
Not happy that they are giving her back to her parents.
They want her to be given to still stay with the states.
According to them, it is not the parents who were forcing her to marry the priest.
Okay.
It was the community, according to them.
Okay.
So if you have asked the parents to sign a bond to protect her rights, immediately they get back into the community. They don't have much to do because they were there and they came to say that you are going to marry your daughter off.
Yeah, that makes sense.
They may not have necessarily been happy about it.
But they don't have
power. Because once the entire community is saying this, there's very little you can do. And in Ghana, we have this collective mindset. We are in a collectivist society where, it's not one person who raises a child.
Of course,
even in the matters of your own child, other people's opinions matter.
Yeah, that's why the state must come in. Because you remember when we spoke to the the executive director of the social welfare, the Department of Social Welfare, she made it clear that the police is also part of this whole operation.
Yeah.
So let's hope now Chromo is well looked after, and then we see what happens. Thank you so much, Mr. Abdullah Saka, for coming through, helping me out with the news review for today. You're coming back in the next few minutes with business news. Thank you so much. Yes, this is still Zed in the Morning right here on Z101.9 FM. We're putting up the last hour before we leave. Coda.
Angry Hearts of Oak fans obviously confronted Ouattara. We spoke about that earlier on. It's a very interesting weekend. Dreams FC held Zamalek to a goalless draw in Egypt in the first leg of the CAF Confederations Cup. And also on the international front, Manchester United scraping into the final of the FA Cup against Coventry. Absolute scenes at Wembley, and we will get into that particular one shortly. And let's start off from the local front. Dreams FC held Egyptian giant Zamalek to a stalemate in the first leg of their CAF Confederations Cup tie last night. The two teams met in Cairo in the semi-final of the competition, with Dreams looking to continue their fairy tale ride. The Ghanaian side will leave the game the happier side after restricting the host to a scoreless game. Dreams will now look to get the better of the Egyptians when they host them at the Baba Yara Stadium in the return leg on Sunday. Karim Zito's side are yet to lose at home since the start of the competition. And Hatsovo coach Abubakar Ouattara was forced to explain the circumstances that led to his team's loss to Legon Cities in a confrontation with a section of the fans. Had suffered an excruciating 2-0 loss to Legon Cities in the Ghana Premier League on Saturday. The Phobians succumbed to 2 second-half goals from City's Albert Yeboah. Saturday's defeat means Hearts have now lost 4 of their last 5 league matches. At full-time, a section of the travelling fans stayed behind to express their disappointment with Ouattara's team. The Ivorian trainer made his way to the supporters, ostensibly to listen to their concerns and offer an explanation. An overview of the results from the Ghana Premier League match week 27. Legon Cities beat Hearts of Oak by 2-0. Karela United and Accra Lions drew 1-0. Asante Kotoko finally breaking the losing jinx, winning 1-0, kind courtesy of a penalty against FC Samatex. Bofa Kwatano and Bechem United played to a 1-0 draw. RTU lost at home in Tamale against Sotraman FC. BBN Gold Stars also beating Adrian Stars by 1-0. Accra Hearts of Lions, not Accra Hearts of Oak, Hearts of Lions also defeating Nations FC by 3-0. Alright, so we transition to the international front. Pep Guardiola criticized, obviously, he's criticized the scheduling leading up to Manchester City's FA Cup semi-final against Chelsea, describing it as unacceptable and not normal. Despite the challenging circumstances, City emerged victorious with a 1-0 win over Chelsea on Sunday. Nicholas Jackson once again making the headlines, guilty of missing glaring chances for the Blues. Manchester City, however, after their Champions League exit from Real Madrid's game, finally made it in the 84th minute of that particular game. Let's take a listen to Pep Guardiola.
why you play today and not tomorrow, one day off, when Coventry, United, Chelsea don't play in the midweek? So why? Why don't have one more day for the health for the players? As a manager, so tell me how you prepare this final against Chelsea in the best moment of the season and semi-final for give prestigious this cup. How? It's impossible. There's no chance. These guys survive.
It might be our fault. It might be our fault, television.
You can change your squad around and play different players, though. You don't have to play so many players in the game on Wednesday. And I know you made, 4 changes today?
No, I had. So I know I thought a lot, but I remember 2 or 3 years ago happened same. We play in Dortmund on Wednesday. We travel Saturday against Liverpool. We make a lot of changes, 3-0 half time. So they destroy us.
All right, that was Pep Guardiola. Now, Manchester United, boss Eric Ten Hag spoke out after his side's Navy FA Cup win over Coventry, accusing his players of a lack of discipline. The Red Devils seemed to be cruising to victory after goals from Scott McTominay, Harry Maguire in the first half, and one added by Bruno Fernandes had given them a 3-0 lead. But Coventry then mounted a memorable comeback, of course, to send the game into extra time. Manchester United had to win that one on penalty kicks. Højlund, the man with the final kick. Andre Onana, I must mention, made 2 saves from that game. Let's take a listen to Eric Ten Hag.
Mixed feelings. A very strong performance the first 70 minutes, and then we allowed the opponent to return into the game, and big compliment to them, but we never should allow them to come back in the game, and that's about managing the game, and we didn't that good. We had our weaknesses there, and we should manage that a lot better as a team. As an individual to take responsibility, but as a team also to take each other in the responsibility to coach and to manage it. You saw the big difference in the first 70 minutes. So it can't happen that you allow them to return into the game. But again, we have also focused on the first 70 minutes where we play very well. By the end, we escaped.
That was Eric Ten Hag. He considered the feat an achievement rather than an embarrassment going into extra time and penalty shootout with Coventry City. And finally, we move to Liverpool's camp. Jurgen Klopp was pleased by a really good football game from his side as Liverpool clinched a 3-1 victory away at the Craven Cottage yesterday. The Reds moved back level on points with Premier League leaders Arsenal with the win, which came courtesy of second-half strikes by Ryan Gravenberch and Diogo Jota. Let's take a listen to Jurgen Klopp after the game.
We won the last 2 away games, so what can I ask for more? So, and especially today, the performance was really good. Besides the last 10 minutes from the first half, where we tried to control the game in the wrong way. That can happen. We don't have to concede then, but we obviously do. But we could show the boys at half-time what we did extremely well, and if we start that doing again, then we will be fine. We will create, and that's what we did. The boys played a really good football game. I think historically we struggle here much more against Fulham. Usually we have here real problems. We did that today much better. We played around and through the formation of them. They didn't really get into the challenges they wanted. That was good. So, and then scoring goals is obviously the most important. Having even more chances, which is normal as well. So I really liked the game.
All right, so that was it from Jurgen Klopp. All the 3 teams back in the title race. Arsenal also, I must mention, won 2-0 at Gary O'Neill's Wolverhampton Wanderers. What a tremendous comeback for Mikel Arteta after that Champions League disappointment against Bayern Munich. In the El Clasico, we saw Jude Bellingham doing it once again. A deja vu. A 3-2 to Real Madrid at the death in injury time. What a game it was. Barcelona took the lead twice, but Real Madrid, as champions of Spain, obviously backing their position, they came back to win 3-2 in a glorious win at the Santiago Bernabeu. All right, so that will be all for Z Sports. We'll be back later in the evening with my colleague Gattuso to the power 7 at exactly 5:15 p.m. GMT. Do continue to follow us on all our social media handles, ZFMGH, on X, IG, Facebook, and also on YouTube. We'll be back tomorrow with a bigger and more explosive edition of Z Sports. My name, Niakwe, the sportscaster, and my message is always simple but relevant. Do not count the days, make the days count.
Here's Mensah, this is positive. Williams, Kudos! The Korean joy did not last for long.
Gosh, Kudus, Mapavana from Guyana.
Hello, it's time for the business news segment here on Zed in the Morning. I am Saka Abdullahi. This morning we have rebuild buffers and boost domestic revenue. IMF charges Ghana and other African economies. Government raises 3.34 billion Ghana cedis from treasury bills. And on the international front, Tesla cuts prices in major markets as sales fall. Ghana and other African economies have been taxed by development partners and donors to rebuild robust buffers and aggressively pursue domestic mobilization to spur growth. Large fiscal deficits and the surge in public debt seen in many parts of the world pose fiscal risks, which are compounded by the growing budgetary pressures from climate, aging, and meeting sustainable development goals. How can countries leverage fiscal rules and frameworks, balancing the need for flexibility in stabilizing the economy in a shock-prone world with the need to preserve the credibility of fiscal policy? First Deputy Managing Director of the International Monetary Fund, Gipa Kobinat, in a panel discussion at the spring meetings which covered cross-country experiences and challenges in designing and implementing fiscal frameworks, urged African countries to commit to innovative measures to raise revenue while rationalizing expenditure.
On the question of messages for the African continent, it is important for countries who have, at this point, the ability to do so to rebuild buffers. Now, what does that mean? I think it's a combination of things. We do see a big need for domestic resource mobilization at a much more serious scale than has been happening in the past. That involves, firstly, making sure that you're getting the right amount of revenues, so your tax base, making sure it actually gets full coverage and not tons of loopholes, raising tax revenues. That's going to be very important, of course, in addition to expenditure measures, but tax revenues is going to be very important. Secondly, in terms of increasing the depth of your domestic markets also, so that helps with your deficits. And structural reforms, which just keep stalling every time, but have to be done. And that's reforms on the fiscal front too is going to be absolutely critical. And what our research has shown is that a precondition is good governance for getting the reforms.
Gita justified the need for strong fiscal buffers on the back of various shades of crisis that economies had been hit with.
I'm very glad we are having this conversation, because if there is one key message to take away from our spring meetings is our call to governments around the world that this is a time to rebuild fiscal buffers. And why are we saying that? We're saying that because we've had the last 4 years of multiple shocks, including the pandemic, the cost of living crisis, and all of that has led to an expansion in global debt. So global debt stands at 93% of GDP at this point, which is 10 percentage points above what it was pre-pandemic. And importantly, that trajectory continues to go up. So that is one of the reasons why it's important to have this conversation.
That was the first Deputy Managing Director of the International Monetary Fund, Gita Kopinath. Away from that story, governments successfully raised 3.34 billion Ghana cedis from treasury bills, slightly below the target of 3.37 billion Ghana cedis. This represents an undersubscription rate of 0.91%, indicating a relatively minor deviation from the intended goal. While the stock market experienced an uptick during the same period, the performance of the cedi was mixed. We turn to Tesla Capital for a more detailed analysis of these market movements for the last week and their implications.
Welcome to a recap of the markets, brought to you by Tesla Capital Limited. Demand for treasury bills declined in the week under review. The government raised 3.34 billion Ghana cedis out of the targeted 3.37 million, which represented an undersubscription rate of 0.91. The government accepted all the bids tendered for the 91-day, 182-day, and 364-day treasury bills during the last Friday's auction. Yields continued their downward trend on the short end of the maturity profile, profile in the week under review, as the initial pricing guidance initiative for Treasury bill auctions keep yielding results. 91-day bill declined by 9 basis points to clear at 25.65%, while the 182-day and the 364-day bills dipped by 25 basis points to clear at 27.90% and 28.50% respectively. The Ghanaian cedi weakened further in the week under review to the USD and the Euro, but showed improvement against the GBP. The cedi depreciated against the USD and the Euro by 0.51% and 0.50% respectively, but appreciated by 0.08% against the GBP. The cedi closed the week trading at mid rates of 13 cedis and 5 pesos to the dollar, 16 cedis and 16 pesos to the pound, and 13 cedis and 89 pesos to the euro. Indicatives from the open market revealed that the cedi closed at mid rates of 13 cedis and 20 pesos to the dollar, 16 cedis and 52 pesos to the pound, and 14 cedis and 10 pesos to the euro. The Ghanaian stock market witnessed an uptick in the performance of its indices in the week under review, as the GSE Composite Index increased by 1.82%. Noteworthy gains in GCB, Access, MTN Ghana, and Total outweighed the loss incurred by New Gold ETF. The index closed the week at 3,504.34 points, with an 11.95% year-to-date return. Market activity, as indicated by traded volumes, saw a surge over the week. A total of 23,772,554 shares worth 38.4 million Ghana cedis changed hands, reflecting a significant rise of 266.21% in traded volumes compared to the previous week. We expect the consumer goods sector of the stock market to drive the performance of the index in the week ahead. This brings our review to an end, and from all of us at Tessa Capital, make it a great day. Visit us online at www.tessacapital.com or call us on 050-154-6859 for more information. Tessa Capital, grow your wealth.
We thank Tessa Capital, a leading financial institution in Ghana, for those insightful market updates. In some international business, Tesla has cut its prices again in a number of major markets, including the US, China, and Germany, as the electric car giant run by multi-billionaire, Elon Musk, faces falling sales. The move comes after it reported a sharp fall in global vehicle deliveries in the first 3 months of this year. A price war has been intensifying between electric vehicle makers, with particularly fierce competition coming from Chinese firms. Tesla is due to report financial results for the first quarter of 2024 after the US market closed on Tuesday. In a post on social media platform X, formerly Twitter, Mr. Musk said, Tesla prices must change frequently in order to match production with demand. In China, the firm cut the starting price of the revamped Model 3 in China by 14,000 yuan to 231,000 yuan. Prices of the Model Y, Model X, and Model S vehicles in the US were cut by $2,000 on Friday. There were also price cuts in many other countries in Europe, the Middle East, and Africa, according to Reuters news agency. BBC has contacted Tesla for confirmation of the Reuters report. The company triggered an EV price war over a year ago when it aggressively cut prices at the expense of profit margins. The firm has been slow to refresh its aging models, with rivals in China such as BYD and NIO have been rolling out cheaper models. Chinese smartphone maker Xiaomi also launched its first EV last month. Last week, Tesla announced plans to lay off more than 10% of its global workforce. And over the weekend, Mr. Musk said he would postpone a planned trip to India, where he was due to meet Prime Minister Narendra Modi due to very heavy Tesla obligations. That is all we have for the business news segment here on Zed in the Morning. But before I go, a recap of the headlines. Rebuild buffers and boost domestic revenue. IMF charges Ghana and other African economies. Government raises 3.34 billion Ghana cedis from treasury bills. And on the international front, Tesla cuts prices in major markets as sales fall. I am Saka Abdullahi. Jerry Ham continues with the show.
You're tuned in to Zed 101.9 FM, your lifestyle, leisure, and business radio.
going by now. Your brand is not being placed before the right people. This is why ZFM and the New Finder newspaper have combined to give you exclusive advertising packages. Join the ranks of thriving businesses. Call 0544 35 1019 0544351019. You never know, there is a great advertising package right here for you. Then you are also listening to us this Monday morning. People are dressed up, they're going to work. However, you're still at home, but you have experience in the sales and marketing field. You're an executive on your own. You understand the space, but you don't have a good job now, or you really don't even have a job at the moment. Why don't you call 0544 35 1019 0544 351019, and you never know, you could be getting a job that would change your life. Today is 22nd. Why is 22nd April a big deal? It is a big deal because the Societe Generale Ghana Jazz Festival starts today. Yes, it's coming on at the Alliance Francaise Accra. It's featuring concerts from BB Brew, Yomi Soba, Kokwi Salome, Rocky Daoni Alune Wade, Shuffle Demons, West Coast Ebusian, Black Muse Entertainment Band. Amazing performances await you at Alliance Francaise from today all through to 27th. Is the Societe Generale Ghana Jazz Festival. So mark it on your calendars and don't miss this amazing jazz festival where music meets magic. Get your concert tickets for 100 Ghana cedis for 1 day, 180 Ghana cedis for 2 days at Alliance Francaise, or you can just dial star 800 star 1010 hash, star 800 star 1010 hash. This festival is brought to you by Alliance Francaise Accra, Societe Generale Ghana, and is sponsored by Wakana Hotel Beer, Ibis Hotel, Homeland Wigal, Felix Co, Media Display, and Canal Plus. Media partners Z101.9 FM, the New Finder newspaper, ZOnline.com, Asasi Radio, YFM Joy FM, and MX24 TV. Friday, 5:30 a.m. daily. Tune into Z101.9 FM and get logged in with Living Word with Dr. Mensa Otabil. Also tune into Z101.9 FM and listen to Highway 1019 with Oforiwa Oyo and Ngozi Boateng Mondays to Fridays, 3 p.m. to 7 p.m. Highway 1019, they drive you home with a smile on your face. Also, the brighter side with NYA, the brand comes your way Mondays to Fridays and all through 10 a.m. to 1 p.m. The show is the brighter side, and the hostess with the mostess is NYA, the brand. Also, tune in to Z101.9 FM every Tuesday, 1 p.m. to 2 p.m. with Fritz Buffo. I have a story to tell. That's the show. I have a story to tell, and the host is Honorable Fritz Buffo himself. Yes, that Fritz Buffo you know. Every Tuesday, tune in 1 p.m. to 2 p.m. as he interviews some amazing Ghanaians doing amazing stuff. Tune in also to this very station, this very dial, 101.9 FM every Saturday morning, 8 a.m. Time with Professor Stephen Adai comes your way. The theme is Abundant Living. Every Saturday, 8 a.m. Professor Stephen Adai brings you Time with Professor Stephen Adai. Z101.9 FM presents Z Gospel Groove with DDM every Sunday, 6 a.m. to 10 a.m. Z Gospel Groove with DDM, Sundays, 6 a.m. to 10 a.m. Tune in to Z 5 a.m. every morning, Mondays to Friday, that is, and listen to the anointed man of God, the vessel of God, Pastor Joshua Eneste, come your way with morning blessings right here, 5 a.m. Mondays to Friday on Z101.9 FM. said, truth be told, privatization of ECG will not be the optimal solution, and advocates for sustainable public ownership. That's another new phrase that is brought into the ECG debate. Sustainable public ownership as opposed to private sector participation in ECG. Then he brings some history into it, where he said before the privatization of the ECG to PDS, you remember the power distribution services, ECG was honoring over 80% of the monthly invoices owed to independent power producers, the IPPs. Before PDS came into the discussion, according to this write-up, ECG was actually doing well. They were paying like 80%. Over 80% of the monthly invoices that the IPPs were sending. And that kept the operations fluid. However, following the privatization, a drastic shift occurred. ECG ceased receiving any revenue, leaving it unable to fulfill its financial commitment to the IPPs and accumulated debt to over $1.8 billion at the time. So, for me, this is a debate that we must open up nationally. Because he's making some very strong points. He's giving you facts that private sector participation might not actually be the way to go, as opposed to what Otunfo said, that private sector is actually the way to go. But now the question is, what kind of private sector are we bringing in? That is what others will say, that yes, it is not true that private sector might not be the way to go. Probably it is the kind of private sector you're looking at. But he also goes on to give you his points, and I like the way the points have been made. He said this calls for the privatization of ECG must be driven not by some imaginary ideal type of organization that would overcome all of its challenges just because it is privatized. As a country, we have gone that path many times in the past, but what has been the effect on these organizations? That's what he's asking here. And he said the debate over the privatization or otherwise of the ECG should take into consideration the following facts. So now he begins to drop you the facts one by one. So listeners, if you are for or against private sector coming into ECG, believing that when private sector comes, the days of doing so will be over, he's giving you reasons why he thinks that might be not accurate. That might not be what would happen. You might be heartbroken if you went that way. His number one point is importance of reliable electricity. Electricity is a vital component of economic development. I think that one is being hammered long enough. And even if it is not at the macro level, in the micro, in your pocket and in your community and at home, if this weekend you slept in Dumso, you will know that, electricity is vital. Vital for powering in not only industries or, powering essential services like hospitals and areas, but also powering your home if you slept in the dark. And he said in Ghana, ensuring reliable electricity supply is crucial for achieving sustainable development goals and improving life standards. I think that's accepted. Then he said the second one is challenges of privatization, profit maximization versus public service. That is always going to be an issue when you bring private sector. That is always going to be an issue. I know of cases where let's use some financial institutions that were doing well, then they fell into hard times because of maybe some financial regulation that said up your minimum shareholders capital. So then they bring private sector in. But the thing about private sector money is this: it is not very patient. It is not very patient. So I was in a conversation recently while with a managing director of one of the banks, and he gave me a scenario that plays so well into this very discussion that we're having now. This is what he said. He said the bank in that time, in years past when they were doing well, before they had to look for money and they brought in private sector, they were able to serve their customers at their pace. There was not so much pressure on the money being, making profit and all the pressures that come with private sector money. So they were able to serve customers at the pace of the customers, and their customers loved them. And there was even something like a joke within this banking sector that you can never poach a customer from that bank. But now, what happened? When they brought in private sector money just said, listen, within this period, you must turn this thing over make a profit of so and so, make a profit of so and so. What happened therefore is, he said the patience with which they had to deal with their customers, they couldn't anymore because they were now in a hurry to turn the money around. So this challenge of privatization, where profit maximization versus public service, it's an eternal debate. It's an eternal debate. Privatization often prioritizes profit maximization over public service. If you brought in private sector, they will make sure they make profit out of ECG. Yeah, so private companies will focus on affluent areas. They will neglect rural. Think about it this way. If private sector comes into ECG and they look at it and say, how do we turn money around quickly? They could easily say, listen, where are the monies going to come from? Okay, the affluent areas of Accra, Kumasi, Takrady, and the rest, push a lot of our investment there. They can afford, they will pay, we make our money. What happens to the rural folks who can't, forget them, we are here to make profit. So the debate between profit maximization and public service is something that will come up if we're bringing private sector into the ECG space. So it's something we need to consider. Then he also talks about the fact that there will be tariff increases. There will be tariff increases. So privatization will lead to tariff, because immediately the private sector money comes in, that bill that you think is very high, and you go and pay, you go and buy prepaid 10 Ghana and those things, there will be a minimum prepaid you can buy. So be expectant of that as well. That is what he's saying. And then he talks about job losses. Private ownership may result in workforce reduction, exacerbating unemployment and social challenges. Yes, private sector comes and says, you know what? We don't need all these people. We'll bring a technology that will do their work. All of you go home. We're here to make profit. Think about that as well. Infrastructure neglect. Private investors may prioritize short-term gains, neglecting long-term infrastructure investments necessary for national development. Why am I taking my time to go through all this? Because I know that across the corridors of corporate Ghana, this debate is still going on. Should we bring private sector in? Should we not bring private sector in? Should we talk to people who understand the space? Should we do it even a national discourse so that we come to a conclusion? If an eminent personality like Dr. Tunfo says private sector, and then another eminent personality like the president of the Independent Power Generator said, no, let's not go private sector, then this is a debate that we need to have, and we need to have it, and have it very, very well. And so, and he comes in and also gives you lessons from other privatizations. Lessons from other privatizations. It's important that we get to hear these lessons that he brings up. Lessons from other privatizations. Number one, water. He said water privatization in Ghana. And then he tells you that previous attempts to privatize water utilities in Ghana led to service deterioration, tariff hikes, and public backlash, ultimately resulting in re-municipalization. So he's giving you one point. This debate must go on. I'm telling you, this debate, I think it is a debate. Water is a good example that he's giving us. Water is a very good example that he's giving us. Then he gives global examples. He said international experiences with utility privatization has shown mixed results with instances of failure and renationalization due to service quality concerns. Can we attempt to behave like this thing is not existing? We cannot. It is not. I think what I find interesting in Dr. Apetogbo's submission here is that we are looking too much to private sector to come and save electricity in Ghana. But if I'm to take something away from his submission, I would say that what he's doing, and he's doing so well, is to caution us to be very, 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 very cautious. The way we are all calling for private sector, as if private sector would be the all in all to solve ECG's problem. He's saying that, listen, there is always a chance that private sector might disappoint you. right? Then he goes on to say efficiency improvements. Look at it this way: enhancing ECG's operational efficiency through modernization. So he's now giving us alternative solutions to the private sector cry. He said, yes, you've seen it in water. Water has disappointed. He said, even internationally, it is not always true that private sector coming into the public utility space becomes a solution. So he's giving alternative solutions. Now is he said, efficiency improvement. Enhancing ECG's operational efficiency through modernization, technology adoption, and capacity building can improve service delivery without privatization. Without privatization. Then he goes on to say regulatory reforms. Strengthening regulatory frameworks to ensure accountability, transparency, and consumer protection is crucial for enhancing utility performance. So he's saying, don't think too private sector. Rather, bring regulations that will reform the current ECG situation. Then he talks of a collaborative model. I'm thinking this is what the Otumfo actually was calling for. Public-private partnerships, PPPs, within the space. Collaborative models that combine public ownership with private sector expertise that can harness efficiency gains while safeguarding public interest. That's a very strong point. That's a very strong point. So put public sector and private sector together. What will happen is, whilst private sector will be pushing for its profit motive, public sector will be looking to the interest of the public. Let's see how it goes. Yes. Then he moves on to talk about what he calls sustainable public ownership. 1, community engagement. Empowering communities in decision-making processes ensures that electricity provision aligns with local needs and priorities. Then he talks about investment in human capital. Investing in ECG's workforce, equipping them with necessary skills, enhances service quality and fosters organizational resilience. The C under this alternative solution, he said, long-term planning. Adopting a strategic approach to infrastructure development and service provision ensures sustainable electricity access for future generations. Privatization of ECG may seem appealing. So this doomsaw thing that is calling for, ECG is so badly run, private sector must come in. When you hear private sector and you compare with the performance of some OEs, state-owned enterprises, and the fact that my good friend and brother Elvis Daku always say any of these SOEs are not running well, they are running at losses and they are making huge losses. It makes the private sector conversation sound appealing. And it's true. But he said it poses significant risk to equitable access, affordability, and service quality. I would disagree on the service quality bit because you would know that if you're private sector and you came into the system and your service quality is bad, who will come to you? So service quality must go with the amount of the investment you're putting in. I think it's only natural. But yes, it's also possible that private sector players might actually compromise service quality for profit, because that's what he's saying, that profit maximization becomes the core motive of a private sector player. Instead of pursuing privatization, Ghana should focus on strengthening the governance structure of ECG and the sector as a whole. An all-inclusive representation on the board of ECG, public ownership, regulatory oversight, and community engagement for responsible consumption as a patriotic duty to pay for energy use. To achieve sustainable electricity provision, learning from the past experiences and embracing innovative solutions, Ghana can overcome the challenges of energy delivery whilst fostering inclusive development of its citizens. Then he comes with a recommendation to maintain the public ownership of ECG, and there's a letter. Your Excellency, I humbly recommend maintaining public ownership of the ECG amidst calls for privatization. Privatization may risk the accessibility, affordability, and stability of electricity services, crucial for national development. Affordability. When private sector comes, would ECGs or would electricity tariffs go up? Accessibility. When private sector comes, would they actually compromise some places at the detriment or otherwise of other places? Would they look to the rich and say, let's provide them, and look to the not so rich and say, no, we cannot afford to? And then also stability. By retaining public ownership, we ensure accountability, equitable access, and strategic governance control over a vital national asset. This decision aligns with a commitment to serving the best interest of all citizens and safeguarding Ghana's energy future. If the conditions that were given to PDS at the time can be made available to the current state of ECG with a reformed board composition, there will be turnaround in 3 months. What are your thoughts on this very ECG conversation? 0544321019. That's the WhatsApp line. You can send your message to 0544321019. Yes, send us your thoughts. Should ECG go private? Should it go public? Should it maintain public? Or it should do a combination? What are your for and your against, depending on where you stand in this discussion? You can also follow us on Instagram, on Facebook, and on X at ZFMGH, and TikTok and YouTube is at Z Multimedia. The website is zmultimedia.com. You can also send your comments on how the Doomsaw treated you over the weekend. 0544321019. 0544321019.
It's your lifestyle, leisure, and business radio.
Zed 101.9 FM. You're tuned in to Zed 101.9 FM. Your lifestyle, leisure, and business radio.
Yes, keep your comments coming. Z101.9 FM, your lifestyle, leisure, and business radio. LLB radio, the only LLB radio here in Ghana. If it is lifestyle, if it's leisure, if it's business, your dial is on the right one. We're coming your way with personal development, personal growth and development. And who is coming? We have Mrs. Emma Adousu, who is an image consultant and branding coach. She's the CEO of Cobadem Image Consultancy. She'll be here at 9 for a discussion on building your personal brand identity. That is Mondays, personal growth and development. That is what is happening on the personal development front. You know, Tuesdays, like I said, are health and wellness Tuesdays. Wednesdays are science and tech Wednesdays. Thursdays are art, culture, and tourism Thursdays. And Fridays are for the business roundtable. That is the last hour of your show. And that is the new format and the new model. So we're expecting Madam Emma Adousu to talk to us today at 9. Building your personal brand identity. This is a very important topic you don't want to miss.
Zed 101.9 FM.
Coming up right after this is Business Briefs. You know, Business Briefs, your new favorite segment on the show. What I like to call the mini MBA on wheels as you go to work. What do we do on Business Briefs? So we understand that as a business professional, the quality of your decisions will be determined by the quality of your thinking. And the quality of your thinking will be determined by the quality of the knowledge in your head. So as part of Zed in the Morning, we're bringing you this segment. Yes, it's a week old. Is it 2 weeks old? Yes, it's 2 weeks old now. And it's all about a mini MBA on wheels, tidbits, snippets of business knowledge that is meant to take you to the office, making you feel a little smarter. That is Zed in the Morning doing its educational bit. If media is to inform, to educate, and to entertain, we're doing all here, right here on Zed in the Morning. Coming up is Business Briefs. To give value. So last week we said to give value, you must first go and determine your market. You must first go and determine your market. So we gave you ways by which you can analyze your market. You remember we gave you about 12 of them. Agency, how quickly are people ready to buy and all that, the market size. Today we're looking at what is the format by which you provide value to the market. Now you found a market. You found a market that is ready to receive you. There are 12 ways you can provide value to the market. 12 ways. So this week and probably the next, we'll be tackling the 12 ways by which you can provide value. The commonest way to provide value is by creating a single tangible item or entity we would call what? The product. Yes, you got it right. The product, that tangible item that you can sell and deliver for more than it cost you to make. That is the fundamental value provider in business. A product. If you saw a book, that's a product. The mobile phone you have in your hands, that's a product. Someone designed it and sold it to you, believing that they sold it to you at less the cost that it took them to. No, they sold it to you at more the cost. It cost them less than selling it to you. So yes, product. That's the first, most important, and the most basic. So if anything that is tangible that you're holding, and he said a product is a tangible form of value. That's the most basic definition. And so the first way you can provide value to the market is to run a product business. So that's your decision. Are you going to do products? If you want to run a product-oriented business, number one, you must create some sort of tangible item that people want. Tangible that people want. That's number one. Number two, you must produce that item as inexpensively as possible while maintaining an acceptable level of quality. Think about it. So product, you must get the tangible item, but make sure that in bringing it as a store of value to the market, it is as inexpensive as possible, but you must still maintain quality. You don't say, okay, the product I want to bring is a shoe. Then you go and make some shoe that will not last a week because it's cheaper to produce it that way. Yes, you might have made money, but then your business will not last. Then the third thing about product, sell as many units as possible for as high a price as the market would take. It's a numbers game when it comes to products. So push. Sell as many as the market will take, as the price that the market will take. That's the only way to make money. And then keep enough inventory of finished products available to fulfill orders as they come in. You know, some people are into the product space, and you call them and say, please, can we get 10 units of this? It's finished. You have to wait for the next consignment. No, if you're running a product-based business, it is crucial for you that you don't run out of stock as and when people need it. So what is it? What are the last thoughts on product as a store of value? Is it providing value in product form is valuable for one key reason. What is that? Products can be duplicated. Products can be duplicated. If, for instance, you wanted to go into publishing of a book, you've done all your design and everything is been proofread and all that, you can now go to bed. Why? You can just duplicate that book. Duplicate it. If it's a phone, the same. If it's any of the things here, it's this lighting system. All you do is you put it on autopilot and you begin to duplicate. Occasionally, you might want to tweak it here a little and then make it a lot more exciting as an offer. But the key advantage of product is duplication. The key advantage of a product is duplication. A book can be written once but duplicated 1,000 times. Individual copies can be printed and delivered millions of times to readers all around the world. So that is one advantage of a tangible product. It can be duplicated. And that's why products tend to scale better than any other form of value. All the other forms of value we'll be discussing this week and maybe the next week. The one way product beats them is by duplication and multiplication. Don't forget this. This is your MBA lesson for today. Duplication and multiplication is what makes the product-oriented business a lot more exciting concept. So now you know. And I hope that makes you feel a little smarter. Yes, as you drive to the office, or if you're already in the office listening to us on Zed in the Morning, we hope this mini MBA has been very useful. This has been Business Briefs right here on Zed in the Morning.
disruptions. So we have seen what is going on with the price of oil,
right,
in particular. We have also seen Ghana go through crisis that is driven by decision making. Decision making on the economy, decision making on socioeconomic policy, decision making of a political nature. And we have certainly seen Ghana go through a crisis that is driven by disruptions in trade because of sub-regional developments. So on many levels, we are an economy that is in crisis. What is interesting about our particular crisis is that we appear to have no guardrails, no buffers, no remedies that are under our control to deal with the evolving issues. So when it comes to, for example, oil price developments now and into the future,
right,
we have not built the capacity to be internally self-sufficient in the production of fuels for our economy. We are way behind. When it comes to sub-regional developments, we saw last year crisis in Mali, Niger, and onion prices, tomato prices went out of the roof. These are basic products that we ought to have been able to produce and supply to our own selves. When it comes to issues of economy, we are still at a place where we are completely exposed because we are unable to access the financial markets. And that is the result of decision making, political decision making, economic decision making. And we have no fallback. So if we are unable to resolve matters to the pleasure of external parties, unfortunately, we are unable to run our economy efficiently. So I think that we need to recognize the fact of our crisis, but more importantly, we need to ask ourselves, how do we ensure that into the future, we can always have a conversation about the protections, the remedies, the guardrails that we have put in place and how robust and effective they are going to be in the event that the unexpected happens.
Okay.
We are not an economy that has conversations about the quality of the remedial actions that we have prepared. We don't have those conversations. We typically have conversations about our reaction. And it needs to change if we are going to be a more successful, a more stable middle-income country.
Okay. So in effect, we are reactive instead of being proactive. And I wish to ask, how did we get to this point?
We got to this point because of our choices. We, as far back as 2020, took some decisions, and I remember speaking extensively on the decisions that government made to ease credit in 2020, and I was extremely concerned that we were easing credit at a time when the supply sources were locked up, that we were going to create an excess of money chasing something to invest in. We were going to create a currency bubble, an unnecessary shortfall of hard currency. It was going to hurt the city. We were only going to be able to respond by harming our own economy. And all of these things have happened. We are also here because we put more money into this economy than we could absorb. We borrowed too much. Our partners tried and failed to advise us to slow down. We got here because we took very ambitious decisions to fund social change in education without taking the commensurate decisions on how we were going to fund it from our own resources. We essentially went forward on a hope and a prayer. You cannot take such massive social decisions, with massive economic implications, on the hope that something will happen.
Positive.
It was necessary for us, and it's still necessary for us, to have very firm basis on how we continue. And in this matter, I'm speaking specifically about free SHS. As good a policy as it is, it was disastrously implemented. We didn't have enough money for teachers. We didn't have enough money for schools. We did not have enough money for curriculum development. We did not have enough money to fund its implementation. We didn't take the decisions that would actually boost the coffers of government. We didn't take the decisions that would make everybody contribute fairly to the coffers of government. We still carry a mindset that says that if you are not in formal employment, somehow you are automatically poor and unable. And yet this economy is 95% driven by the informal sector.
Absolutely.
And the informal sector has not collapsed since I was born. So there must be profit somewhere, there must be surplus somewhere. And yet we refuse to just have the straightforward conversation about how to make sure that the surpluses of the informal sector are taxed fairly, and used to help run this economy.
Is it that we have not well diagnosed the challenges that face us all these years? Or it's a matter of being clueless about what the issues should be?
I don't think we are clueless, but I think that our diagnosis has not led us to the right decisions.
Okay.
Because much of the conversation around the implementation becomes political. And so we know the right steps to take in terms of our fiscal, in terms of our monetary policy. We understand it completely. Like we always say in Ghana, when parties are in opposition, they have the right medicine for Ghana. The minute they are in government, they can't seem to make those right decisions happen. And why does that happen? It merely happens because we often find that government is in power and only wants to be in power to keep power. So many compromises on populism are made. And like I gave the example on taxation, we simply never cross that Rubicon. But there are other economies that are driven by small businesses. Germany is an economy that is driven by its small businesses. Italy is an economy that is driven by its small businesses. South Africa is an economy that is driven by small businesses. Rwanda is an economy that is driven by small businesses. Brazil is an economy that is driven by small businesses. Indeed, even China, India, you name it, everywhere we trade, every country we admire is driven by small businesses. But these are a part of the economy that have been formalized, that are able to receive policy support so that they can do well as private businesses. Not just do well, but then contribute to the public purse so that the country is able to move forward and make the right social investments. We don't seem to want to make that decision to formalize our small business sector. They are highly structured businesses, only that we have allowed them to operate under the radar for so long in the name of being informal.
Right.
There's nothing informal about them. They know where to get money. They know where they spend their money. They know how they sell their products. They know what profit margins they put on. They create surpluses to stay in business and look after homes and look after businesses and make investments. This is not a part of our economy that we can continue to call informal. What it is that we have simply refused to organize it into a part of our economy where we can see the flows, track the flows, and let the surpluses contribute fairly. These are not decisions that we have misdiagnosed. These are decisions we have failed to take.
Okay.
And continue to bite us.
Right, interesting. So there's a narrative that we bandy about to the effect that the informal sector needs to be roped in when we talk about taxes. And we have for a long time, so many years, tagged them as informal, as you say. And each time we talk about revenue mobilization, there's this narrative about that we need to rope the informal sector in. And to talk about government's digitization agenda, there's been word about the fact that policies have been made to rope them in. What do you make of this, and where are we going with these programs?
There are two issues. First of all, we say that turkeys don't vote for Christmas. So you cannot expect the small business sector to willingly walk itself into the tax architecture of the economy. No matter what anybody says, it has to be a conscious, active decision by government, by the revenue agencies to make sure that that actually happens. And we are capable if we put our minds, then the political will behind it, and we allow those in the appropriate institutions to do their work. The second issue is corruption, and let's face it. Because the one supposed to ensure that what must be paid is oftentimes the very person who is suggesting how you can avoid it, or is willing to acquiesce to suggestions and entities to avoid. So we have this dual situation where we don't want to take the decision that has to be made operationally, and we are faced with a culture of corruption, tax avoidance, tax dodging, if you want to call it that. That means that you cannot deal with that issue on a purely political footing. This has to be something that the major parties agree on, support each other, whether in government or out of government, to ensure that when it comes to the nation's revenue, everything is done right. I listened to a speech by the former president of South Africa, Thabo Mbeki, who said, South Africa worked well and weathered so many storms in a period where 95% of the resources of the state were collected by the South Africa Revenue Service. Efficiently collected. And that when people wanted to attack the state, they did not organize a coup. They did not go to parliament and create chaos. They merely undermined the revenue service. And so the state saw the contribution of the revenue service drop from 95 to 90 and ultimately somewhere around 60. And as the contribution of tax to the state dropped, we saw the weakness of the state emerge. Decisions that had to be taken were postponed. Investments that needed to be made were not made. Private entities took control of government. We are in the situation where we are already living in that situation, right? Our state is already undermined. Private entities control it. We go to parliament and we talk about tax loopholes and tax breaks for companies and individuals. So it's not a case of we are losing it. We don't have it and we have to build it. But we do need to recognize that whatever we want to do as a state, we can do if we really enhance the ability, the capability, the resources of our revenue agencies. We have to make that a national priority that has nothing to do with politics. And it's going to take some willingness on the part of the political parties to simply say, this area will not be subject for debate. Here we will take decisions in a unified manner. We can quarrel over everything and anything else, but if we don't resource the state, we cannot do anything. Okay. Many times people say that those to take that decision are themselves part of the problem. It may be so, but this is the Titanic. If we want to sink together, we will sink together. If we want to swim together, we'll swim together. It's our choice what we do with our Titanic. And nobody can make those decisions for us, except that you'll find that as the political leadership has delayed and delayed and delayed, the political ground has become more heated and more impatient and more unwilling to countenance the situation. So we either act or something will erupt from the bottom. If I'm a young person and I've seen my parents become poor and the quality of my life collapse, how patient will I be with the elite in their comfortable lifestyles? So it's just a matter of time and how we choose to act going forward. Firm decisions have to be made about revenue for the state, how we collect it and how efficiently we collect it and how well we use it to build up the state. As for the issue of corruption, it again rests for me with our courts, with our parliament. Our parliament decides on what the rules are and our courts enforce it. As for the executive, everywhere in the world, it is corrupt. But the question becomes, does parliament and does the judiciary become the bulwark against the practice? Because they are the only two institutions that can stop it. Every executive everywhere has had scandal upon scandal upon scandal. So I am under no illusions. But everywhere you have seen that when it is dealt with, it is either in the courts or in the parliament. Our courts and our parliament have a way to go to assure us that we're going to deal with corruption effectively. The jury is still out.
Wow, thank you very much. So back to the issue of the Ghanaian economy. I want to find out what's your appreciation of Ghana's present predicament. So Ghana is debt-ridden as we speak. We are restructuring our debts. What's your appreciation from where you sit of what is this convoluted kind of thing we are facing, which disallows us from going to the capital markets now?
Personally, I think that we have to pay our debts. We simply have to pay our debts.
We have what it takes to pay our debts now.
I think that we don't have what it takes to pay our debts today. But it is also because we are looking for somebody else to take the bullet. We're looking for our creditors to give up what is rightfully theirs. Both the domestic creditors and the international creditors. And there is this perverse logic that if we rob the people that invested in our future, somehow we will be better placed to go back to them to help us again. And hear me carefully. If we rob those who invested in our future by denying them the fair returns that we offered and they accepted, that somehow they'll be waiting to help us when this is all over. There's no world in which that logic prevails. And if you doubt, go and look at the history of Argentina. Argentina has made it its national sport to borrow and default. And where is it today? Ghana can do better, but it calls for temperance. We have built a governance system that is opaque in this country. First of all, the purse sits with Parliament. And I don't know how my parliamentarian takes decisions. When we were a young, immature democracy, we said we need to protect them. But today we have seen brave souls like Sam George stand up for a cause and argue it all the way through and defy the whole world and say this is who we are and this is what we stand for. So why is it that when it comes to our money, we don't know how anybody votes? And all we hear is yeah. And I don't know the reason why my MP votes for a loan or against a loan. I don't know why my MP decides that this expenditure is acceptable and that expenditure is not acceptable. In effect, our system does not allow us truly to hold anybody to account. That is our first problem. Our second issue is that even when those charged with holding the purse want to hold government to account, they are not resourced to do so. You go to any mature country, their parliamentarians have independent financial advice to them as a body that guides their decision making. Ghana doesn't have that. And worse, because we have mixed parliamentarians into our executive and they must catch the eye of the president. I mean, I always say in November, somebody took a budget to Parliament, and in January, we had the DEP. So all the people who sat on the government side and were screaming for the budget to be passed, did they actually take the time to look at it? Or did they vote for it because it was their president and their minister bringing the document? Parliament was charged with the responsibility to scrutinize that budget and passed it wholesale because they are not resourced and they are unwilling and nobody will hold them accountable. So you passed it in November, majority has its way. January, we are in DDEP, and everybody has egg on their faces. And then the same parliamentarians complain, we don't know what the finance minister is doing. That's why I keep saying that not a single one of them should have the courage to come to us and say we are awarding ourselves ex gratia. They failed us completely. So I talked about issues of transparency. I've talked about issues of accountability. I think the other thing that we need to talk about is that, you see, we are not having these conversations where government and private sector actually sit down and decide where the sectors for our future growth, wealth creation, society, the development of society will lie and be powered from. A lot of work has been done. That signals to us that we need to take a serious look at our agro industries, at our agribusiness value chains, and make them become the basis on which we change Ghana. I'm not talking about putting more people on farms. I'm talking about creating interconnected agro industries and agribusiness value chains that work. A lot of work has also been done signaling that Ghana, in its culture, arts, and tourism space, has tremendous opportunity to create wealth. Yet, we pay lip service to these two opportunities. And every day we are rushing to go and sell another forest for mining. You ask yourself, in a world where the environment is going to pieces and we are suffering for it, where is the common sense in destroying your forests to chase metals? Metals that you do not and will not for the next 30 years have the capacity to translate into wealth. We are still exporting our gold, essentially raw. We're still exporting our timber as logs. Our redwood is leaving this country and they label it as Wawa. Switzerland is booking 6 billion of gold purchased from Ghana, and Ghana is booking 1.5 billion of gold sold to Switzerland. Where did the 4.5 billion go? Our extractive sector, our primary sector, is not, for me, the future. And the energies that we are spending, destroying the forest, handing it over to Chinese people, Canadians, Americans, Brits, defies logic. When we should rather be asking them to come and help us to build our agro industries and our agribusiness value chains. Have you seen a rich country in the world where the agriculture and sector is in pieces? They build it and protect it jealously. And what we have done is abandoned ours and allowed everybody to import the food that we eat. So it is a strange logic. As we sit, what is the fervor? Lithium. And yet, we know the story of Congo, we know the story of all our gold mining areas, we know the story of Galamsey. This industry has done nothing for us. Absolutely nothing but cause the rape and destruction of our land. And yet, that is what everybody is excited about. I have not heard any government since the year 1992 tell us that we have a strategy that is focused on developing agro industries. And all my presidency is staked on agro industries. Have you heard any president do that? No. Not one. There's nobody who has said, I'm interested making sure that I will fund the development of quality human resources to make sure that my culture, arts, and tourism in the sector thrives, not one. But everybody is in a rush to tell us, let's go mine oil, let's go mine lithium, let's give the gold away, let's do galamsey, and it's political people who are doing the galamsey. So that is the second part of this conversation with the private sector about what kind of economy we want to build. I keep saying that we went into DDEP not understanding the kind of economy we wanted to create when this crisis had transpired. So we are still running around like headless chickens, chasing every wind there is. We've not had the conversation about what kind of economy do we want until we have it. So recently we heard about 24-hour economy.
Yes.
And what happened? One half started laughing as if it was the most idiotic idea and never took the time to just consider that indeed, if we could build not just islands of industry, but interconnected industrial hubs focused around core sectors, we will change our future. Is it so difficult to just imagine, instead of isolated pockets of things, to find a way to interconnect them and make them more powerful? Never mind the slogan. Just consider the concept. Why should anybody laugh? Why should anybody treat it with derision? It's because we are being short-sighted. It's because we are being purely political. If I should say yes, then I've shot myself in the foot. So let me laugh. Let me say it's madness. We did it to Nkrumah when he was building the dam, and it carried us to today. We did it to Nkrumah when he was doing the motorway, and it's carried us to today. We are now patching motorway with bitumen as if we are not thinking. When investments were being done in energy in 2013, 14, 15, 16, we said it was madness, too much energy. The same arguments that were made when the dam was being built. Today, the surplus is gone, we have Doomsaw, and we say it's not Doomsaw, it's Doomsiesi. We are strange. We are simply strange. So these are realities that require a humble approach a humble conversation about the kind of economy we want to evolve into. People sat in Dubai and imagined the future, and they built it. People sat in Qatar, imagined the future, and they built it. Yesterday, the Omani leader was on CNN and talking about he too is going to turn Oman into something fantastic. Why is it that other people imagine their future and develop it, and all we do is destroy the future even before it is born? I think most Ghanaians have always said the biggest social action we took, free SHS, was a thing whose time had come, but the worst thing about it, we never planned to pay for it on our own. We never planned for it. That is the disaster.
Right. That's interesting. But then, it is not as if we haven't fashioned out nice policies, as you mentioned. We've had one district, one factory, one village, one dam. And these, especially with the 1D, 1F, some have sprung up with challenges though. And we've had the 24-hour economy, as you indicated. These are nice policies. What is it about implementation that we get wrong?
Well, let me put it this way. We saw an industrialization policy under President Nkrumah. We saw an industrialization policy under General Achambo. We've seen a drive under Rawlings when we talked about our cottage industry thing. President Kufuor also did his bit. Everybody has, in one way or another, tried to leverage on Ghana's energy potential, energy resources to develop local industry. And I go back to the point I just made. It has never been centered around a very clear vision of the kind of economy that we want for ourselves. At that time, if I remember when I was younger and the Rawlings, we were hungry. So everybody was doing Gary factory. Everybody was doing Gary factory all over the place. But that was not the economy we wanted to build, right? It was a stopgap measure. Probably the only person who had a well-designed, crafted, and executed industrial policy was President Nkrumah. And after him, everybody else has just probably wasted our time and made things worse. The fact remains that, see, until you solve your energy issues, you can't industrialize. Until you solve energy, you cannot industrialize. And we have played political football with energy. The last president who took concerted efforts to solve the energy issue and create space for us to grow was vilified, was called a waster of money, etc., etc. And it was so shocking to watch educated people who should know better politicize a very sensible decision. If you think he paid too much, so be it. But the cost of the plant versus the value of GDP it will release. When you put the two next to each other, you may as well just have the power. Okay. Right? You may as well. And nobody has proven anywhere. But we threw away an energy advantage and wasted the time. We didn't build forward. That's one. Two, you cannot industrialize if you are raw material poor. What we have in Ghana is a situation where our local industries can only get about 30% of the raw materials that they require domestically. And why is that interesting? Because 30% of our agricultural produce rots, wastes away, because we haven't developed the right systems to harvest, to transport them into appropriate warehousing, and we haven't developed the right kind of warehousing. And then on the other side, the agro industries do not exist to convert them into value-added products with longer shelf lives, bigger markets, etc., etc. So you don't have the energy, you don't have the raw materials, and you are talking about industrialization. So the fruit juice factories are struggling. The sugar factory is struggling. The tomato factory is struggling. Everything that requires a raw material is struggling. And they are struggling on power that is poor quality, power that is too expensive, raw materials that don't come, raw materials that are too expensive. These are not great unknowns. They are common facts. So why is it that we have not decided the economy we want and understood the solutions that we have to apply? Two areas, energy and raw material. Is that so difficult?
So on energy, the Minister of Finance recently announced...
I'm no expert.
He announced that government was taking some measures to restore the sector. Now, this is what he said, that government is introducing an audit into the system. Now they're going to audit the entire sector. Beyond that, they're going to review the tariff setting structure of the PURC and other measures. So they're intending to restore the sector. Do you perchance see any value, any good orientation results in this latest announcement?
It is about time. So it's a good thing. It's a very good thing. I mean, look, let's get the energy sector right. I'm not an industry expert, but in my life as a consultant, I've had the opportunity to work with all the major public sector entities on governance issues. I think 2017, 2018, and again in 2020, 2021. So what I will say is that sector is filled with very high quality people. They know what needs to be done. I think we need to allow the public sector to be what it is. It is supposed to be run for the benefit of the public purse as opposed to the benefit of a private shareholder. That's the only difference. But it is supposed to run efficiently and create surpluses. We have refused to allow our energy system to be run efficiently and profitably. And if that is the orientation of the policymakers, you cannot blame the system. So that's my first take. Audit is good, but beyond audit, create a new culture that says that you shall run and you shall run efficiently and create surpluses to fund yourself. How can you sell electricity and lose money? How? Because somebody is interfering with business logic. Right? That's all that it is. In private sector businesses, it is not uncommon to have pricing policy that sets a common price across a whole country. And everybody in the decision-making chain knows that the price in the remote area is subsidized by the price in the large urban area.
It's acceptable?
It is done. So there's no reason for us to fuss over the point that somebody is in a rural area and electricity takes a lot to get to him and he can't afford it. It doesn't matter. We can still set pricing so that everybody can have it, and those who can't have it because they are in depressed areas have their price subsidized by those of us who are in economically vibrant areas. It's fair. That's why we are all called Ghanaians. That's why we are a unitary state and not a federal state. So it shouldn't be a debate. It should not be the reason why we run our energy system into the ground. It should not be. But tell us that it is also run efficiently, right? Not the situation where somebody, because they work for government, doesn't pay and there are no consequences. I listened to the discussion the other day that hospitals had been shut off for non-payment and we should let hospitals be free of the burden. Why? Don't they consume power? Don't they charge fees? Why have we set the fees so that they cannot pay their power? So the power system should subsidize the health system. And then who will subsidize the power system? Does it not come back to the same citizen? So who's deceiving who? I think that we need to be realistic about the energy sector. We can't joke with it.
Do you believe in renewable energy?
I think that it's about time.
Okay.
I think it's about time. Every possible investment that can be made, let us allow it to be made. And again, I don't think all of it should be made by government. I think the days when we needed a certain entity called government to build a dam and what, they are past and gone. Let us allow other players to come and invest in energy in Ghana. Let us allow them a free market to sell their energy. Let us allow ourselves to become energy rich, because we have the capacity to be energy rich, so that we can power our own industry. This situation where when we talk about energy, immediately everybody turns their eye and looks at government, I think it's a false narrative. We really don't need government if we can show that we will allow these investments to come, that we will allow a free energy market. Government steps in where government must, but don't use your power to depress economic decision making in the sector. In other places they have a system of credits to support poor households, etc., etc. There's nothing wrong with creating a similar system so that pure economic decisions can be made. After all, we have local assemblies, you have district assemblies. They know their citizens, and if credits have to be created to allow people to buy power, so be it. But let the power producer know that when he makes his decision, when he brings his investment, somebody is not going to sit somewhere and put on a political hat and say that, look at the ridiculous thing. To say that the water lies in my area, so we shouldn't pay for electricity. Why? Then the food is in another place, so you shouldn't have it. Then they should eat all the food they produce. If it's only cassava, they should only eat cassava. Common sense needs to drive the sort of politics around energy. And we keep quiet and we say, it's such a sensitive issue. The people are making an argument that doesn't wash, and everybody wants to be quiet about it. Let's be bold sometimes and look the chief in the eye and look the community in the eye and say, you are wrong. You cannot say the water lies in your area, so you will not pay. It's unacceptable. It's the kind of thing that destroys countries. It's the kind of logic that ruins economies. And sometimes we just have to be straightforward. There's too much of, I don't want to offend, the community. But quite honestly, behind all of this is politics. Somebody is using that just for political ends. And we won't name names and we won't call people out, and all the rest of the country hears is that some dynamic is beginning to take seed where we behave like we are a federal state. We are not.
So these things make the sector unattractive to the private sector.
Well, that's what we are doing. People come, they make their investments, and then we write one letter and say that I've suspended. And people have planned 5 years, 6 years to construct renewable energy infrastructure. And then you say, bam, I let you in, but I stop.
Oh. Mr. Johnson, so the other bit about this whole issue about our economy is about inflation and the fact that we have a central bank that is inflation targeting, and it is backed by IMF to continue to tighten monetary policy to rein in inflation, and usually at the expense of growth. Do you subscribe to this prescription?
most central banks target inflation. They also target job creation. That is not the issue. The issue is, where did our inflation come from? Our inflation came from profligacy. Our inflation came from the fact that we've never seriously built up the supply side of our economy. So all that we've done is we've made our economy dependent on external supply. And so when any shock happens, we pay for it twice. The inflation we are seeing now is driven quite simply because government just spent money as if there was no tomorrow. Government just took, what was it, 70 or 77 billion from the central bank, and then on one piece of paper wrote, I won't pay. And when you borrow and you don't pay, why should I trust your currency? You are literally just printing money and dumping it in your economy. And economics 101, if you create oversupply, the value fall. So you said, lend me money, and then the next thing you just wrote on a one paragraph, I won't pay. And then the rest of the world should look at your currency and say, oh, this is a well-run, well-managed currency. Let's put trust in it. The value of your currency is the trust that people have in how you manage it. So if you manage it like it is a cottage industry, well, people will give it the trust that goes with a cottage industry. We have behaved in an abhorrent manner when it comes to managing the value of our city. Other countries guard the value of their currency. What do? We sit down every year and we project that it will depreciate. What logic is that? You wake up every morning and say, today I plan to fail. Today I plan to depreciate my currency without any plan to increase my exports. That's the economic logic. You depreciate so you can export more. So if you plan 20% depreciation, you must plan 30, 40, 50% growth in exports. Ask me the last time anybody told me, or you, or anyone else, that we are planning 20% depreciation of the cedi in this year. We are planning a 50% growth in exports. There will be an offset. We will be better off. The remittances will come back. They will shore up, and we'll be going. When was the last time you heard that? You've never heard it. So we plan, it will depreciate. We don't plan, we will gain more in trade, we'll gain more in revenue. And why is that? Because we wake up every day as managers of the economy, managers of the system, and all we care about is, where's money going to come from for me to spend like a drunkard, and that's it.
Finally, what is a way out of this current economic situation that we found ourselves in?
Many prescriptions are out there. So I'll only tell you my view. One is discipline. Don't spend what you don't have. And don't spend beyond your ability to generate new sources of revenue. 1. 2, government is too big.
The size of government, you mean?
It's just too big. We need to face the reality. Look, in 1992, we wrote a constitution. It said for every 72,000 people, we'll create a district. So we set the basis on a number,
right?
Forgetting that the total population will grow. A day will come with the current arrangement, we will have 500 districts in this country. 500 DCs, 500 chief coordinating directors, 500 of every government agency and department. We will have one ministry of local government to run all of that. It is called a recipe for disaster. Our government, at the very bottom, we need to think and ask ourselves, do we want 500 districts? Or do we actually want to have 60, 70, 80 and rather provide the resources based on the number of people? You have smaller government, you will not deprive the people of the infrastructure or the systems or the resources. And for me, that is a better way forward. Our government is too big. Our government is too inefficient. Right? So that for me is one part of it. When I talk about local government, the same applies to our parliament. Our parliament is too big. Way too big, and sadly, way too under-resourced. We are creating a situation where, by constitution, we are baking into our system waste and inefficiency. And when you cut the pie ever smaller, ever smaller, ever smaller, what happens is that people begin to agitate for their tiny, inconsequential, inefficient, no economies of scale share of that pie. And the national temperature will rise. So we have a conversation to have about the way we construct local government, parliament, and the numbers that go with them. The efficiencies we are losing and the waste we are creating. Because you waste more. If you take a cake and you want to slice it into 100 pieces, there will be more crumbs scattered all over, isn't it? So the people entitled to a slice will lose it into crumbs, and somebody will come back and gather all the crumbs. That's the corruption part. And you say, oh, this is mine, and he will end up having more than even somebody who was supposed to have a slice. We are destroying our future if we don't fix those two issues, local government and the parliament. We have to resource local government, not create more local government. We have to resource parliament, not create more constituencies. If we don't deal with these two issues, and it comes back to political will. Right now, I am not certain that in either of the two parties there's any strength of conviction to deal with those two issues. But if we don't deal with it, we'll have 500 MPs and 500 districts. And all that we will have is rubber stamp parliament and non-functioning districts. Mark my words. If we don't deal with those two issues, we will have those two consequences. And it's baked into the constitution. So for me, whoever comes to run our government has to institute deep constitutional reform. Thankfully, President Mills gave us a template. And if we don't take it and implement it on a bipartisan basis, commonsensical basis, then they have failed us round two. They failed us with DDEP. They will fail us if they don't reform our constitution. And that is back to the people who sit in parliament and the people who are in the executive.
It's your lifestyle, leisure, and business
Ghana
radio.
has prospects, but they are very, very shaky prospects because the construct of our politics, the construct of our economy, the construct of our decision making do not make for good decisions. We have to change the construct. Then we have a path forward. Thank you, sir. It is my pleasure. I am grateful.
Zed 101.9 FM.
Managing partner at Ishmael Yamson and Associates, Michael Harry Yamson. Talking Ghana and all things Ghana. Beautiful country called Ghana. Ama Ghana, we love to say. It'll be well. She's royal. Tyrus Riley. satisfying your customers. That's what today's session is on. How do you satisfy customers? So this is the equation. Customers come into the transaction with an expectation, right? They come in with an expectation. Then there is your performance. So your performance and their expectation, that's where the equation bit comes in. And you and I know that when it comes to a bit of equation is just one of three. There are two others: greater than and equal than, equal to, greater than, equal to, and less than. So these are the three, right? Greater than, less than, and equal to. So of these three, this is what you have to do. If you want your customers to walk away satisfied, you either lower their expectation and you increase your performance. Equating it does not help, because equating it means it's normal. Everybody is doing it. You're also doing it. So so people walk away from the experience and they are not blown away. However, what the equation is simple. You're either going to up your game above the expectation, but if you know you cannot, then you must lower the expectations. The danger in lowering the expectation is that if their expectations are way below what the average market expectations are, then they might not come back, or they might not even come to you. So if you look at the three, greater than, where performance is greater than expectation, or less than, where performance is less than expectation, or performance is equal to, your best job is to ensure that at every point in time, your performance is above expectation. But how would you be able to tell expectation? That is where all the interactions come in. You're picking feedbacks from your customers. What are they saying? What are they saying? What is the market saying? What are industry standards? These are ways you pick up what customer expectations are. But no matter what it is, you always must think of it this way. How do I increase my performance above my customers' expectations? So let's run through this once again. It's either less than, performance is less than expectation, then you have an aggrieved customer at hand. Performance is equal to expectation, where now you have a normal customer who is not too enthused, neither is he angry. But then you have where performance is greater than expectation. You have an excited customer. So yes, this has been lesson for today. Customer service and experience moments right here on Zed in the Morning on Z 101.9 FM. Thank you. Mondays, and it's always exciting when you have some those who know the space, those who appreciate the personal growth space, coming in and having great conversations with us. We have right in the studios, Madam Emma Oswado is here with us, and I'm excited. Emma Ado Owusu is here with us. She's an image consultant and a branding coach. She's a CEO of Kobadem Image Consultancy. Today we're discussing building your personal brand identity. Building your personal brand identity. What is personal branding? I'll ask her that, and then how do we go about it? What are the advantages of personal branding? Is it something that we should all factor into what we do? Those are the kinds of conversations that we'll be having today. It's going to be quite exciting. So please don't touch your dial. We're coming back with a discussion that would help make you a better professional. It's building your personal brand right here on Personal Growth and Development Mondays with Madam Emma Ado Owusu. So good morning, madam. Welcome to the studios of Zed 101.9 FM.
Thank you. Nice to have you.
It's been too long. Where have you been hiding?
I was going to ask you that until I saw you on Facebook, and I knew, no, you are
I'm
more
hiding
visible.
here. Is it long? Is it long?
Yeah, it has.
It's been a while we had some of these conversations, and for me, being in the personal development space over all these decades and having met folks like you, one of the first things that comes to mind is you've been in this for long and you've stayed in it. I mean, what has been keeping you in this personal growth and development space?
Passion. It's all about passion. If you have passion for it, the reward, you derive reward when people are happy. So one of the key attributes of building a personal brand, which we're going to talk about, is passion. Without passion, you do not have a brand.
Interesting. So personal branding. Let's start from the very basics to help our listeners. What is it? What is personal branding?
Well, if you are thinking of carving a niche in the industry, you need to actively engage in personal branding. So personal branding is about the uniqueness of you in a wide space.
Okay.
That's how I explain it. The uniqueness of you in a wide space. How you go about articulating what sets you apart from the crowd.
How you go about articulating what sets you apart. That is what personal branding is.
That's about personal branding.
Should we all stand out from the crowd? I mean, if we all stood out, would there be a crowd?
Good question. There will always be a crowd. For crying out loud, we're over 9 billion. I mean, even if 10% of us decided that we want to go into personal branding, there still be 8.1 billion people of a crowd.
Okay.
To see what we're doing. And the key thing is that buyers are becoming more conscious of their options. It's not like in the past when social media was poor and people didn't have access to professionals. Now they're spoiled for choice. So it's about he who waves the highest and the longest gets the attention that you need. And then you have the ability to convert it into monetary value, status value, or whatever value you want to convert it to. So you must stand out from the crowd in this day and age.
You must. It's a must.
It's a must.
Every professional.
If you want to go far, you have to. You definitely have to stand out in the crowd.
That's interesting. But so let's find out. So you're saying it's about how you market yourself, how you let the world see who you are and what makes you different, and that is what you're saying will take you far in your career. So let's start. What are the elements of personal branding that the listener who is on this dial today, what are the things the person should begin to look out for? And then we take it one step at a time. How do you work on that so that by the time we're done, we give them a full course on personal branding? For starters, where do I start from? So I'm listening to you today. I'm wondering, okay, I hear her. I think I will need personal branding. Where do I start?
So it starts with the journey of self-discovery.
Okay.
If you don't know who you are, how can you sell yourself to the outside world? We are multi-talented in various facets of our lives, but there must be something unique that you do extremely well that stands out. Therein lies your passion. You have the skill, you have that. You need to identify what makes you different from the lot. If I'm engaging with you, why would I want to work with you? What is the uniqueness of you? And it starts with you knowing who you are and where you want to go to. If you don't have anything you're passionate about, then what is the essence of branding?
Okay.
So you start by beginning to identify what makes you whom you are. And when you identify that, this is the narrative you want to send out to the public.
Okay.
And so in your having established whom you are, what your passion is, what you have to offer the people, you now know who you are.
Okay.
The next is, how do you translate that narrative to the public?
Okay.
So that they will also identify with you and say, yes, we agree. This is who you say you really are. And so in building a brand, you have to be clear about who exactly you are. We don't want to see you from multiple views.
Okay.
Then obviously you become a jack of all trades, master of none. That damages your brand. But if there's one thing you want to stand out for and you stick to it, then automatically you started the journey of personal branding.
Self-discovery, that's the starting point.
Well.
Are we helping the young ones discover themselves earlier? Because I'm thinking some listening to us today will be at the age where they will be asking, at this age, do we need to do more at the basic level, or where does a person begin to discover? Do we wait for the person to grow enough to know themselves, or where does this whole self-discovery thing come from? Where does it start?
That's an amazing question to start with. So the journey of self-discovery begins from when you are aware of your environment.
That early?
That early. So, for example, we as parents, we're normally told to expose our kids to a lot of experiences. It's for a reason. That way, they will be able to identify what they are really keen into. So, if you look at the young ones today, they're a bit lost. Why are they lost? Because what is being promoted on social media in terms of lifestyle and status is messing up their mind with regards to the journey you need to get there. I'll give you an example. Let's say I'm a very successful businessman, and I've put up this front that shows I'm very successful, and I give people the impression that I work so hard, I'm very successful. Automatically, the youth will want to find out, okay, so what did he do? Okay, I did this, I did that, I do that. Now, for a genuine business, that is amazing to have that impact on them. But can you imagine when the youth discovers that you're actually into drugs or something illegal, and that is the front you're putting up? It confuses them. So they're like, okay, I want to be like you. So
do I also go do this?
Thank you. Do I also go do this, or do I also do that to be like you? So when the youths are growing up, they need to be exposed to positive experiences that will help in shaping up their mind and their thought process. And along the journey, they begin to identify what they are clearly interested in. And that's why I normally tell parents that it is all shades of wrong to compel your kids into a career that you are not able to accomplish in your lifetime. Or force your kids to become people they really are not. It's a facade. It will fall off. But when we expose them to different experiences, we are in a better position to shape their journey and help them in establishing that uniqueness in them. And then over time, they can use that in establishing a strong personal brand.
That's interesting, because I'm now wondering that should it not even be a conscious effort at that level to begin to add it to the curriculum of a sort? Not, I don't know, but I'm sure there are some schools that are strong on that, and somewhere they couldn't really be bothered.
Absolutely. I agree with you. So it starts from the curriculum. I mean, you being able to tell them that you can make a difference. You have the power to make the difference. Look at what you are. Develop areas that need to be nurtured, and then self-package yourself in such a way that when you go outside, you have something to offer. We see it a lot in the tertiary institutions. They graduate, they are lost. Some of them are extremely qualified, but they don't know their left from their right. So recently I was having a discussion with Madam Lucy. She's the Chief Executive Officer of Community Chocolates, and she was like, Emma, we need to actually put together a program where we can actually go to the tertiary institution and let them have their mind set up and made up before
they leave.
Before they leave. Let this be an active discussion, because some of them do not have the social experiences to actually appreciate the value of the talents that they have. But when we are in a position to nurture them, grow with them, they leave more confident and fully focused on their careers and their brand, because they already know where they are going to.
You think those coming out of our universities are ill-equipped to make it in these times that we're getting into, in terms of, are they ill-equipped in terms of their mindsets?
Not all of them.
There are great ones coming out.
There are absolutely great ones coming out. And these people who are coming up is because they have exposed themselves. Yes, they are well read. You know, they actually invest in personal development. So they've exposed themselves to certain opportunities for personal growth. So before they leave, they already know what, is out there, what they're going to do. But equally, there are people who are clueless. The idea is that once you're pretty, you talk well, you're eloquent, and you can, bat your eyes in certain places, that should open doors.
You open some doors for you.
But that should not be the narrative at all.
I get. So now I go through. How do I do this self-discovery thing? Is there a test I have to write? What do I have to do to discover myself?
Good question. Now, let me ask you. What is one thing you can do for hours and not get tired of doing?
Myself.
Yourself.
I just talk.
You talk. And you flow with people, right?
Yeah. I think so.
It's a talent. It's a gift.
Okay.
So equally, in the journey of self-discovery, what do you do effortlessly?
That's the first question you ask yourself.
That's the first question.
What is it that comes naturally
to you, effortlessly? You are engaged in it and all that. For example, the other day, I was telling somebody that when it comes to personal grooming, if you ask me to talk about business suit, I can give you a 3-hour presentation just on
that one. I know. Between the two of us, I know.
So those are effortless things that you do. It can be you have the gift of baking, you have a gift of talent of talking, public speaking, you are eloquent in certain areas, and you do this without even thinking about it. Like, you don't have to even sit and rehearse. You go out there, you're in the spotlight, you're delivering. Those are your talents, and you need to nurture them, because these are the kind of things that already are part of you, part of your system, part of your brand. So it becomes easier to tap into that resource and then articulate it to the world, and in such a way that your narrative is believed by the people you want to build a brand.
So that's a point one, what comes naturally to you.
Yes.
So now you find what comes naturally to you. Is personal branding any different from, or what are the differences between personal branding and the corporate branding we see? What are the differences, or where do the two come in?
Okay. They are separate, but actually they have a romance going on in there.
Great.
Of some sort. Corporate branding is more, it's more deliberate, and they're talking about your signages, your logos, your core values. As a matter of fact, core values, if you're building a personal brand, you should have a core value, actually, a set of core values.
Okay, so that's a good point. Let's touch on that.
Okay.
Still in the self-discovery phase of personal branding, I must also discover my core values.
Thank you.
What do you mean by core values?
Core values are behaviors and attitude that informs your actions and your deliverables. If, for example, one of my core values is integrity. Integrity is a core value that works as a large umbrella, and a lot of things comes under integrity, like loyalty, faithfulness, commitment, and all that. So if I'm building a personal brand and I say one of my core values is integrity, it means that my code of ethics must be on point. My loyalty, it can be to my client, it can be to my business associates and all that. So in building a personal brand or even a corporate brand, you need core values. Without core values, you don't know where you're going to. Core values are there because they remind you of whom you are. If supposedly along the journey you begin to deviate, core values will bring you back. Charlie, you're going off. If I say, for example, I'm a kind person, I take kindness as my core value, it has to be seen in my actions and my relationships with people. So if I realize I'm being mean to somebody and I go back and I realize that my core value is kindness, it means that no, you're going off track. Go back and be kinder. So core values regulate our behavior, attitude, and how we deliver our brand in the eyes of the public.
Okay, so they become like the cardinal points around which we navigate. So
absolutely.
I'm thinking this. The guy has integrity as a core value, or the lady has integrity as a core value. She's in the corporate space and she's placed in a situation where she either compromises or loses her job. What would Madam Emma Adosu tell this person?
Oh, so what is your core value?
Integrity, yes.
Stick to it and refuse to compromise.
So it might even be detrimental, but because it's a core value,
stick to it. The thing with core values is that oftentimes we lose out on opportunities, but the benefit is down the road. Yes.
Okay.
Yeah. Core values, for some time, in sticking to your core values, you may feel as if you're losing out. Because, Charlie, there, you can, do some.
Yeah.
There. But core values say, no, you're not doing that. Don't do it. And you're like, oh, shit. So you go, you don't do it. But I realize that 2 years, 3 years down the line, somebody remembers that you could have compromised yourself, but you didn't. And what did they say? Oh, Mr. Ham, he's a man of integrity. Then you are feeling cool. Forgetting that it was your actions, in prior months or prior years that have enabled people to hold you and realize that you say what you do what you say you are. So core values are integral to building a personal brand. Without core values, you don't have a personal brand.
Without core values, you don't have a personal brand. No, okay. So now, and all this comes at the soft side of the whole discussion. Like now you know who you are. You have a set of core values. What next?
So now you have to sell your story to the world.
Is this where communication is coming in now?
Yes, because the thing with personal branding is that if you don't brand yourself, we will help you, we'll brand you nicely. So you cannot be inactive or decide not to take part in your brand.
Am I right, therefore, in saying that everyone listening to us today now has a brand, a personal brand?
Yes, right.
Whether they created it or
not,
or we created it for them, they already have it.
They have it.
So personal branding is being conscious about your brand.
Yes.
Because you already have it.
You already have it. And then how you are communicating that brand to the public. I'll give you an example. This morning I was coming with an Uber. And when I entered the car, the guy looked soft, he looked nice. I was like, oh, okay. This guy looks like an affable guy. I mean, physically, because core values, your physical is very important.
We'll come to that.
Yes. Your physical is important. But I thought, okay, this guy like a gentleman, he had the ring gun and stuff like that, and and we drove along and stuff like that. So I had a high impression about him. Okay, he wasn't saying much. I greeted him. He was courteous. He responded. I was like, okay, it's nice to have a gentleman drive you here. Until I saw a car trying to overtake him, and he said, "Uye kwasia." I said, "Oh my goodness!"
Oh, shoot. He just lost out. The image and the action.
Thank you.
Didn't go together.
Debbie.
So in other words, we're learning. This is Personal Growth and Development Mondays right here on Zed in the Morning, and I am having a discussion with Madam Emma Adosu, who is an image consultant and branding coach, and she's a CEO of Kobadem Image Consultancy. She's saying your actions must go with the physical, the physical. So the internal is what we've worked on. You've discovered who you are. You have your core values, And then now you need to communicate. Now you're moving from the internal to the external. What are the things that we should look out for externally so that we are conscious? Now we are building our personal brand. What are some of the things we should look out for?
Behavior, attitude, and your look.
Behavior,
attitude, look, and expertise.
Behavior, attitude, look, and expertise. Okay.
I want to put that in a bond because I don't want to rope it in with social media. That's a different ball of game altogether. So what do we mean by this? Okay, so when I was coming up, when I arrived here, I said to myself, you call yourself an image consultant. Look like one. Your makeup, your dressing.
You must look the part.
You must look the part. It's very important. And as I walked up the staircase, Emmanuel said, you look good. I said, yay, I've passed. Yay, I was happy.
Mr. Emmanuel Watson,
yes, he said,
my colleague,
as I was
he said you look good.
He said I look good.
Okay.
So he didn't know what that did to me when he said I look good. But he was giving me a pass mark on my appearance.
Okay.
And that made me feel good. Like
He's a great guy. Emmanuel Watson is a great guy.
So so I have passed that because how do you call yourself an image consultant and you look like scrap for crying out loud? You know what image is, and you're consulting for people, to your clients. It has to be seen in your appearance, in your demeanor. So appearance is important, and your dressing, your grooming is important.
I know Emma to be so crazy about personal grooming and looks, and sometimes in the early days I'm like, but this woman crowd, why? So today you are in the studios with me. So behavior,
behavior,
attitude, looks, and your expertise. Let's start with you've been around corporate Ghana a long time, more than 1 decade. We've known each other that long.
Yeah, that long, absolutely.
What are the behaviors you've seen which are no for a great personal brand?
Okay. So what people do not understand is that when you're building a personal brand, it's a group thing, especially in the corporate world.
Okay.
You have your core values, you have standards you have set, but you need humans to execute that mandate.
Okay.
So when you're building a professional corporate brand, we need to see those values and standards in your staff.
Okay.
So it presupposes that if you tell me, especially if you're in the service industry, and you tell me you deliver excellent customer service, and I walk into your office, the grooming is not on point, your staff look disheveled, and on top of that, they don't even give me excellent customer service.
Okay.
That's a disconnect of some sort. Your brand is not branding anyhow. Your brand
is not branding.
And also, you also look at it from a professional perspective. You expect that the service industry where you find yourself or whatever business you're into, you should have ultimate expertise in it. It therefore means that you should constantly evolve in your workspace and what you do.
Does the average Ghanaian professional behave professionally? I know I'm putting you on the spot.
1 out of 10, 5, 6 out of 10.
Yeah, but that's not good enough.
It's not good enough. They can do better.
Yeah.
And that is why sometimes it looks as if I'm being difficult, but I'm not. And I'll give you a typical example. I had an eye appointment, and I spoke to the CEO of the company because the first time I was there, she handled my case, and I was taking my son there. And she tells me, I'll be in the office between 4 and 4:30, so I'll meet you up there and handle you. I was excited. It's not in my domain, so I had to take a car. I took a ride I've paid money. I'm paying that money because you have assured me you're going to be there between 4 and 4:30. I go there at 4. I'm waiting for my son who's supposed to join me, and she's nowhere to be seen. So I sat and I was like, I know where these people are going to, but I'm just going to watch and see.
You're going to wait.
I'm going to
for
wait
the movie to finish playing out.
Before I do anything, because I know there was another doctor, there was another optometrist there, and I knew where he was going to, but I refused to say anything. And so I sat in there, my son joins me, and I told the receptionist, I said, yes, Madam said she'll be joining me. Where is Madam? She does not say anything to me. She gets up and goes straight into the room. And then walks out and you can see the gentleman. And I said, excuse me, I don't have a meeting with a gentleman. I have a meeting with your CEO. He said, oh, well, since she's not here, she said you can see him. And I said, but did you communicate that to me? Did she call me to communicate it to me? Madam, I'm sorry, I'm held up somewhere. But pending my arrival, I would like my assistant to
start with you.
Yes, that is what we talk about, excellent customer service. Stop taking your clients for granted. And I called out and I said, no, what you're doing is not acceptable. You're not telling me things. The person I'm expecting to see, whom I told you, I'm not seeing that person. So you should tell me that, no, this is the situation. So in the interim, see this person.
Okay.
So they have to apologize, because they realize that is how it should be. But the question is that, how many of us have that capacity, have that audacity to call out poor service?
We'll walk away.
We don't. But how do we change the story? Because some of them are delivering bad service without even knowing that that's what they're doing, and it's affecting their brand.
So personal branding, your behavior must be on point, especially when you're in a corporate space.
Corporate.
Attitude.
Good. Attitude maketh a man.
Attitude maketh a man.
Yes, attitude maketh a man. Your attitude can make and unmake you. The mistake corporate Ghana sometimes make is the assumption that because you have the standard, the ethics, the core values, it is automatically, transferred to
into the employees.
Yes, to the employees.
But as employees, do you see Ghanaian employees with, what is the attitude of the average Ghanaian employee?
If you want me to do it, tell me. If you don't tell me, we are all here. We are all watching.
Initiative.
So it needs 0.00. So so what you need to do is we need to train them. And that's my problem with sometimes corporate Ghana. They see training as a waste of money. But the business it is costing them, they have no idea. They have no idea. So the thing there is that you have a brand you have built in your mind. We don't know that brand. It's between yourself, you, God, and the universe. Translate it to me. Tell me what it is you want. And then when you realize that I have shortcomings, when it comes to my deliverables, train me, sit with me, show me, this is what I need to do. We don't do that. We expect the people to know automatically. Are we kidding?
But you left the university, you went to school, you brought your CV and we gave you the job. Don't you know you must have a great attitude? Why should it be the chief? You yourself, why should we worry ourselves about it?
It's a very good statement you're making. But the question is that the people you're employing, do they appreciate the value of personal development themselves? As far as I'm concerned, when them at school, you have my degree, you say I'm an accountant, give me the figures.
Let's do figures.
Let's do figures things. If you know customer service, what are your customers? I don't care.
Yeah.
Whereas their presence there, the space they're occupying in your company is having an impact with the relationship with your clients.
Looks. I know you are all about. We've had this looks discussion for a long time.
Looks is important.
How are we to look like as part of our personal branding journey?
Good question. Brand and look. You must look according to, you yourself must look according to the brand you are building. How can you say you're a corporate executive, you are going to boardroom meeting with sneakers? Who died? What's the meaning of that?
Who died? I'm taking sneakers into that. So
even if you own the business, so what?
You must look it.
Leadership by example. Look, I've trained corporate executives and I've seen everything. Some of them who appreciate the impact your physical look can have on your business brand. And some people who are like, we didn't know. So I now basically have an open mind. Because you think people should know, but really, really, they are clueless.
Who is better branded, male or female, in terms of the professional space?
In terms of looks?
Yes.
Women don't joke with their looks.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, women. Especially when they are in tune to what they need to do to look good. But my problem with them is they always get their dress code wrong.
Tell me about it. Now that's interesting to me.
You're going to an office. You're not going to a nightclub. What's the meaning of that? What's the blink for? are doing lazy things. Why? Is it dinner party or what? Wedding?
Do you think they know? Are we aware of these things?
Good question. They don't. So we need to help them to help themselves and help your brand. Recently, I had a training with Ghana Gas. A lot of the ladies were clueless. They had no idea that a certain percentage of lace clothing on your clothes can move it from corporate to social.
A certain percentage of lace
in your
attire for the day could move it from
corporate
appropriate for work
to social to wedding attire. They were clueless, so we had to train them. They needed to know.
Oh my goodness. So people are coming to work,
yes,
looking in a certain way. Okay, before we let's leave the ladies for now. We'll come back.
Okay.
The gentleman.
The gentleman, that one there. Okay.
Because whatever you tell me, I'll walk out of the studios and I'll begin marking the gentleman in Zed Multimedia by it. What should the professional coming to work, regardless of the department, wear? The barest minimum you would expect if you walked into a place. What on Monday to Friday, what should that person look like?
Good, decent dressing, be it African print or how do I say, formal, like corporate, like office shirts. I expect if you're going to wear a necktie and your tie knot is dirty, it's a no-no for me.
Dirty tie knots?
I hate it. I mean, it's an eyesore. Or what also takes me off is shirt collars that are turned in or turned out. It gets to me. It's not. It's not.
Atima warriors.
It's not.
Is it not a money thing? I mean, the shirt.
I like that question. It is not a money thing when we have canter in the system.
Ooh.
So
that defeats. That defeats the purpose of or the argument about money.
Thank you.
That if you go to Katamantu, you can get a good shirt.
I was in Legono. I was picking my dressing in those days from Kant. And
when you were on campus? What hall were you in?
No, I was in Ekwafo.
Amazing.
Ekwafo.
And you would go to Katamantu just so that you look it.
I have to. Because at that time, I didn't have boutique sika there. I don't have boutique funny sika. I don't. So I go to Kanta. If it's first selection, indulge yourself. But at the end of the day, it's the results we want.
You look good and nobody know how much it costs.
You ask me, you tell me the dress looks expensive. I confirm that indeed it's very expensive. You didn't make it from outside. Yes, the possibility is high. Because indeed, from outside, actually.
Yes.
So if you say UK, you say, oh, definitely. High possibility, and that's a Europe. But the point is that you have to invest in your brand. It's you we're talking about here.
And it's not that expensive to invest in your looks.
No, it's not. It's not. Because I have seen it all. I have groomed low-end corporate people. I have groomed high-end corporate executive. If you have a budget, there is something in there for you. Money is not an excuse.
Money is not
an
excuse.
No, it's not. If you want us to go to Katamantu, no problem. Book a date with me, Ebeko. I will choose the size for you. It's my job. If you don't have money, you can't afford me. If that's what you can afford, I'll help you. Why not?
And this I know for a fact because, like I keep saying, we've been talking this 10 years or so back. And okay, so you would say that there is a role organizations have in helping their employees look good or to brand themselves well.
Correct, 100%. I'm not going to add, I'm not going to take off from what you've said. That is absolutely on point.
Banks are giving clothing allowance. Bankers are giving clothing allowance. Some other organizations do. In an organization where I am not, you still say, look.
Yes, it's you. It's about you. Forget your company. That's the problem we make. So if they don't
give me allowance, I'll wear anything I want.
Yeah, you wear anything you want until maybe somebody who is head hunting sees you're qualified, they look you up and down. I'm like, nah, you're not a fit. Do it for yourself. Forget your company.
Do it for yourself. Forget your company.
If they give you, fine. If they don't give you, fine. Your benefactor, your caregiver will locate you because your packaging of yourself is so good that they want you. So build the attraction for yourself.
Let me find out. There are those that have argued that the call for personal branding puts unnecessary pressure on people to look a certain way.
Who's putting pressure on me?
They say you're putting pressure, like, hey, now I must be conscious of the way I behave and the way. Is it not too much pressure? Why don't I just wear anything and go about my day?
If somebody talks to you about personal branding, they have an affection for you. They know your value, but you yourself, you don't know your value. You don't know what you're capable of. Somebody tells us, you can do better. I know what you're capable of. Thank them, because they're probably seeing a hidden gem in you, which you are probably, your eyes, your spectacles are too blurred to see. So if they're asking you to brand yourself, sit down, draft out a plan. What areas are we looking about here? Are we talking about here? Is it in your grooming? Is it in your attitude? Is it in your communication skills? Let me tell you, some people have amazing ideas, but the way they communicate it is a disaster. Maybe you may need to work on that to improve your image or brand. When somebody says, oh, work on your personal brand, it's a generic statement. Ask them for the specifics of that statement and then run with what they've told you. Because we are on the outside. We are the crowd.
We're looking at you.
We are looking at you. And so we are like your mirror. So if somebody tells me and said, Emma, certain things you do, I'm not comfortable with it. I should not easily get offended. I should take my time and listen in and see that if there's a reason for that, then maybe I can adjust it. That way, we can all seek ways and means of building a more coherent brand.
Final words before I let you go. Now, you definitely must come back. This conversation cannot end here. All too soon, my time is up. But final words before I let you run into your next meeting.
So when it comes to personal branding, we're asking you to control the narratives. You control the image you want people to have of you. Yeah, there are set standards in society and all that, but you also have your values. Merge with them. Be able to flow irrespective of what circle you find yourself within. And, be of value to people. Let the room light up when you walk in, not grow dim when you are there. That way, you are building a fantastic personal brand.
Thank you once again. Listeners, you've been listening to Madam Emma Adousu, and she's an image consultant and a branding coach. She's a CEO of Cobadem Image Consultancy. Thank you so much, Madam, for coming. I would look for you again for us to continue.
Absolutely.
Have a great day. So, listeners, yes, that's been Personal Growth and Development Mondays. We're coming back with the last round before we walk out of this place. This is still Zed in the Morning. I am Jerry Helm.
It's your lifestyle, leisure, and business radio.
So I should touch on that. So I'm going to oblige. Sir Charles Quist Street. Why is it? It's in front of Ohinijan Stadium, Accra Sports Stadium in Usu. There's a Sir Charles Quist Street. The name you should remember in this discussion is Sir Emmanuel Charles Quist, who is an OB Obi, also known as Parquis, was a barrister, educator, and a judge who served as the first speaker of the Gold Coast Legislative Assembly and the first speaker of the Parliament of Ghana. Sir Emmanuel Charles Quist is the name behind Sir Charles Quist Street. So now you know, and I hope that makes you feel a little smarter. This is Zed in the Morning, the Monday edition. Hope you had a great time all through from 5:55 to this time. But before we walk out, as always, I'll have to leave you with a statement. Pray like it only depends on God, but work like it only depends on you. Have a good one, people. We'll do this again tomorrow by the grace of God.